So you'll have to excuse the very sudden, not actually starting soon. We have the Crip interview right now, and I'm starting late. Austinite, who was in the chat 12 minutes ago, I don't know if you're still here. Hi, thank you for being on time. At Austinite. Sorry, I'm late. Sad melty face. Okay, so that's that. Let me link it in the Discord, and then we're gonna just start.
Gary
I already have.
At everyone slay the prince.
Stop. I already have the VOD hooked up. I haven't seen anything on the Crip interview. I'm just, oh man, I can't believe I'm late right now. So let's copy, let's paste. So, okay, sweet, that's done. Okay, let me pull up one more thing here, and then we're good to go. Oh man, this guy was here at 4:30, and I fucked up. Ah, I'm sorry, Austinite. Jeez, I don't even know if you're still here. Ah, I don't think you are. Oh well, okay. Austinite, hello! Sorry, we're running a little bit late today, about 11-12 minutes. Sorry about that. You were here. Oh, you were here at 4:30. Oh, I saw you there. I saw your little chit chat. I see what's up. Sorry, I had to start late today, but exciting. So we have let me refresh this so we have like a fresh VOD. Okay. So let me get it qualityed up, and we're gonna watch this Path of Exile interview. So I know we said we were gonna do Slay the Princess, not Slay the Spire, Slay the Princess today. However, there was a Criparian interview with a Path of Exile 2 developer. As a guy who loves Path of Exile, I actually flew to New Zealand for the Exile Con, the convention, and this is the sequel to the game, and it's very exciting. It's a cool little thing we got going, and we're gonna listen to the interview. We might be playing Path of Exile at the same time. We'll see. We probably will be. But yeah, this is pretty cool. Okay, so let's turn the volume up. Quality is already there.
All right. Can we?
Okay, and the volume is pretty loud, but I need to get into game 2. I think we're just gonna can I like picture-in-picture this? Theater mode, clip, settings, pop out player. Oh baby, let's freaking go. Okay, so we have the player. Let's minimize that. Here's the player. That's going to be separate. There's me. Hello. Ooh, neat. Very cool. It's gonna be a little different. Also, I need to nerf my size a little. Hold on. We'll go full. Oh, I don't know if you saw this. I'm sorry, you're new here. Hold on. I have the ability to press buttons. Look. Whoa! Look, Mom, I'm VTubing. I can press buttons, and you're gonna see me press buttons as we play this. Let me just get into game real quick, and I think the volume is fine as is because we're gonna have the Criparian interview going. We're cast on crit, except we're not. When we get to level 58, we're gonna have all of this stuff equipped. I have all my equipment ready. I have my Crown of the Inward Eye, Shaper's Touch, Wrath Pith, Ivory Tower on a 5-link. We'll have everything set up there, but you'll see as more people come in here, we'll get going. Okay, let's play the Crip interview. Let's just quickly, can I just refresh this easily? Because we're gonna hit a stone wall very quick, or we're gonna hit a wall. We'll find out. All right, let's have this playing in the background, and there must be, oh wait, I can picture-in-picture. Oh, I'm so smart. Okay, window capture. This is Twitch preview, and then we're gonna grab the this one. Yes. Okay, sweet. Don't capture the cursor. Okay, so now we're gonna shrink this. All right, we got ourselves a little bit of a setup here, don't we? Oh my goodness gracious. Okay, let's do this to this. Okay, I think okay, health bar is still visible. All right, sweet, let's go. Let's play. Let's see what happens.
I might have to recalibrate you a little bit.
So testing 1, 2, 3. My name
How's everyone doing today? Oh my goodness, we gotta kill innocents.
Okay, let's turn you up a little bit higher. Hopefully that will work.
Anyway, I know a lot of you probably don't know what's going on here, but
sounds good. Okay. Well, chat gave me the approval, so
Hopefully
we
the
have
game's not
nothing
too
to worry
loud.
about.
Game's probably pretty quiet, actually.
All right, so you did your little introduction there. That's great. So just so everyone is kind of on the same
This is Path of
page,
Exile. It's really
this is,
fun. I love it.
Jonathan Rogers. He's one of the directors for PoE2, and you've been
So-
quite busy doing a round of interviews with many people at many events, spreading the word about the
Maybe it's a
features
little
of
bit
the
too loud.
upcoming
Hold on.
game that many of us are dying to try.
Okay, we're going to pause throughout this interview because I'm already like 20 minutes behind it anyway. So, again, we have newer people here. So this, what you're seeing now is Path of Exile 1, right? This is the original game. And they have a sequel coming in the betas for it in like 6 months. And we don't really know that much about it. As a guy who went to ExileCon and all that shit, I still don't know much about the game. Hopefully this elucidates a lot of what we're doing. We're expecting to get new info. It's going to be an exciting time.
So
Hopefully.
we did an interview at ExileCon. There's been a few announcements since, but I've noticed that you've actually been really active
On the Reddit.
Out of Exile 2 subreddit, answering questions of just about anyone that has one for you. It's been kind of difficult for me to kind of compile all that information, so maybe I'm going to ask a question that has been asked already. My goal is to ask new questions. It's just a very
Well,
very
not everybody
difficult
watches the
task,
Reddit.
because the information isn't really like, there's a wiki, but even the wiki has some info wrong. Like, I actually had a question about the crafting bench being removed, but apparently you've actually addressed that recently on Reddit. So again, and of course with all of this information, with the game still being in development, I hope people understand that you'll just be giving your best answer from what you can share.
We'll
with us,
transition to
and
cast on
nothing
crit
is
in 12
final and all
levels.
that for the
Around level
disclaimers.
56.
Okay, great. So I wanted to start with a round of
20 levels, I guess,
questions that
64.
I kind of put together. And
Whenever we get
then
Ivory
I
Tower.
have a number of questions that I saw unanswered on Reddit, on actually just a few YouTube
67.
videos. I pulled some questions from chat, and we will pull further questions from chat as we go throughout the segment. But yeah, so it should be a pretty good segment. So first, I kind of wanted to dive and talk a little bit about the last trailer that you had, which was the Mercenary trailer.
Oh my goodness,
In that
stun
you
lock.
announced that you have WASD movement. And I tried to kind of imagine this, like, you know, how I would play with it. It feels like I would, a lot of the time, not want to go exactly right or exactly left or exactly up or exactly down. And with the keyboard, it's maybe a
Listen,
little
chat,
bit
shut the
difficult
fuck up,
to
all
actually
right?
combine that. Now,
I
I know
need
some
your
people really
sass
wanted
today.
this
I'm not
feature, so
Ben,
bring it
all
to them.
right?
But I have to imagine, is this more tailored for like a controller-style gameplay?
So that wasn't our initial thinking. It was just when I was, trying out the mercenary. So this had been suggested in our studio a long time ago, to be clear, right? Like, there's people have been saying, hey, maybe we should do this for a while, and I was kind of always on the idea that this is something we should try, but it never was kind of like the right moment to do it, because it is quite a complicated.
What am I doing now?
Quite a complicated thing to actually fully pull off.
Hmm.
And then when we were doing mercenary stuff, I was kind of like, okay, we have some of the preconditions we needed to actually to go and try it. The other thing as well, of course, is like people in the community have been keen for ages. So then I was just like, you know what?
I think we want armor and shield mastery now, right?
Controller was really the first thing on my mind. It was, but I mean, obviously the improvements we make, I'm sure, will benefit controller.
5, 4.
But it really was
Oh, we
just,
gotta do this. My
how
bad.
can I make this class feel good? And kind of generally, my feeling is that whatever it takes to make the combat feel good is what we will try. It's kind of just one of those things that happen that way. I don't think that the limitation of having only 8 directions with WASD is particularly.
So again, we're going to be interrupting throughout this because I'm already behind anyway. How do I feel about WASD controls in Path of Exile? I'm not going to use it myself personally. It's just very unappealing to me. I don't come from an MMO background. I come from a point and click background, Like StarCraft, well, as much as you can point and click in that game, StarCraft didn't have WASD. For me, that would be really weird. So WASD controls are Geargate. Hello, we're pausing the interview. We're going to be right back to it. But if you haven't even started the interview yet, then good. We're like maybe 5 minutes in. They're talking about WASD controls, basically. Oh no. They're talking about WASD controls. And I'm not going to use it because it's just not something that appeals to me, you know. Even if I play a skill that's designed around it, I would rather try to figure out a way to just not play it that way. It's sort of weird how return projectiles and sniper's mark makes it so blazing salvo just does unlimited single target damage. It's kind of cool, right? Oh, I'm sure stream bitrate is going to love this. Anyway, let's continue.
Particularly a problem in practice. It seems to kind of just be fine, just from me playing anyway. Yeah, like it hasn't really been an issue. And because the character always sort of looks towards where your mouse is, it doesn't honestly even really feel like a directional movement because you know, the character can technically kind of walk in any direction relative to where they're facing. So you end up kind of just completely forgetting the fact that it's actually directional, and yeah, just kind of works.
Well, since you
Sweet.
have tried it, and I guess you're probably one of the only ones who has tried it, are you a convert? Are you going to be a WASD?
No, he's not. No shot.
PoE2?
I'm pretty sure I am. Yes, I was actually very skeptical outside of range. Like my first, when we were talking about it, I was like, okay, this is going to be a thing for range. I don't think.
So obviously, as the director of PoE2, he's gonna say yes to that, right? The thing is that there are questions I want asked in this. A lot of it's related to stuff they've already talked about, though. Like, they say there's no life on the passive tree. Like, does that mean that the higher tier of life is going to be harder than what current higher tier life is on gear to get? Like, is there going to be a huge ceiling? If there is such a thing as life stacking, does that mean that we can still do life stacking, you just can't stack it as high as before and then adjust accordingly? Like, I have a lot of questions about like how exactly it's gonna work now that we have to now that we don't have to invest in like big defenses on the passive tree or anything, at least when it comes to a flat pool. Like this build, for example, we strengthen in stack, right? We're gonna get just an insane amount of energy shield. I'm planning to get like at least 15,000 energy shield, but there's people going upwards of 40,000 energy shield. Is there anything interesting in the interview? We just started it. There's people going upwards of 40,000 energy shield on this very same build with like Ivory Tower and everything. The thing is if we get rid of life on the tree and we just have ES, that does limit build options. So I'm hoping that the wheels that replace them, I would want like an example of a wheel that now has design space on the passive tree, now that life no longer exists, you know?
Melee is going to be that great. And actually, the reason why I thought that is there was this game, what was it called? I don't think it ever actually released. It was in beta. It might have been called like Pagan Online or something like that.
Never heard of it.
And they had WASD movement in an action RPG, and I really hated it. I thought that the movement felt really terrible, the combat felt terrible. And so I was kind of imagining that we would have the same problem with our melee. But then what I found was, when I actually tried that out, is that it actually felt really good. And I think the reason is because of the step attack stuff we have. What that means basically is that when you attack, we have different animations.
Okay.
Depending on whether you're moving at the time, and also depending on whether...
Hold on. He's talking about like WASD melee? I don't know if I would ever play that with melee. Like, I think it's not an accident they only showed it with like a ranged character with like a channeling skill. Because like, I couldn't imagine playing like double strike with WASD, you know? It feels, I don't know. Like, he says he was apprehensive about it at first, and so am I. But I'm wondering why they're embracing it so much, even on melee skills. That's so weird. Because if I go into PoE2 and I play WASD on melee, it's gonna feel bad, right? Like, I play PoE2 melee with like mouse clicks, and that shit was hard, all right? Obviously, the stun was bugged, if you don't know, okay? Obviously, the stun at PoE, that ExileCon was bugged. You had the same poise as monsters, which was very not how the game is supposed to be. But still, Grim Dawn has WASD and it feels good on melee. Everybody's HP is probably normalized. Whatever limit you want to push now will require gear. Yeah, but how much can you push it?
The monster that's like where the monster is relative to you. So we've got animations of the character sort of stepping forward, and the key thing we're trying to do there is to make it so that you never lose momentum on your character. So it feels really bad if your character just kind of comes.
Yeah, we have single target damage, but I'm allowed to just hit them.
And so by adding these extra animations, it allows us to make the character feel like they're kind of flowing forward and then going into the attack. So because we have those,
Oh,
I
and
think
if I
it
have
actually
sniper's mark on
drastically
him.
improves how melee combat feels with WASD, and I actually am a fan of it. I think it feels pretty damn good.
Well, I guess
so,
I'll have to
yeah,
give it a try. I mean, I was
Yeah.
skeptical as well, but on your recommendation, I guess more of us will perhaps be more open-minded on it. Now, since you mentioned there's like a more of an active flow of combat, the mercenary also has, in addition to the instant attacks, something that kind of caught my eye was the attacks while moving.
Correct.
Now, the closest thing we have to this is some form of cyclone or cyclone triggering other skills in Path of Exile 1.
Can I just walk around and start wailing?
With Cyclone actually being a pretty poor skill otherwise, it still has this mainstay in the game just because it can be used.
Sorry, I wasn't paying
moving.
attention. My bad.
Is this going to be like a full attack while moving, or is it like Cyclone-ish where you have certain movement penalties? Like, is there something you can elaborate on that, and maybe if this is something more than just what the mercenary will have?
Yeah, so on rapid shot in particular, basically you just get a 50% move penalty while you're doing it. So just whatever your movement speed is, it'll be halved during rapid shot, and that sort of tends to feel pretty reasonable. This is something that I'm keen to do more of with other skills in the game. I think it actually makes the pace of combat feel faster when you can sort of begin attacking before you arrive at your next
tornado shot.
Or just sort of otherwise having something to do while you're retreating. So I kind of quite like the feel of that, and so I'd like to do some of that as well. But I don't want to make it to the point where every skill you can just do while moving, because I think that results in very floaty combat that I don't really like. So in particular for melee, you kind of have to make sure you're splitting the difference a little bit of where you need to make sure, like what I think can be good is that you can kind of ease it into like. You start an attack, and during the start of that attack, you've
alright, I know there's a bunch of people here who are like, what the fuck, Gary? This build, wrong capture? Oh, did I? Oh my god, I had the wrong capture on that whole time. Thank you. I know some people are gonna be like, Gary, you're dying. Listen, all right, you sons of bitches. We're doing an Energy Blade build without actually having the gear for Energy Blade, okay? So give me until like level 67, and then we're gonna be invincible. Level 68 if we want to do Wrath Pith, okay? My crit chance is already on my Spectral Throw 32% with no critical strike investment outside of this one passive. Currently, we have 300 strength, 450 int. I want to get like 1,000 of each, ideally, and go from there. But just that's the heads up, you know. It's going to be rough for another 15 levels.
Where the movement control you have tones down to potentially 0 for at least a little while, and then back into having movement again towards the end, and that kind of thing can kind of allow you to have like the feeling of you're still able to do a lot.
You said the same about CoC Witch, and it worked, didn't it?
But also, I think for other ranged classes as well, it can be good to have just a few options. Not necessarily a lot of options, but at least a few options that allow you to be done while moving. There's just certain things I think that can feel really good from that. And so we have been experimenting with other classes and other skills as well. Like we think there are certain skills that can really benefit from that kind of thing. Yeah, it's definitely something I want to do more of.
So I kind of wanted to ask this later, but I'll jump to it now since you've touched upon it. One thing that I feel isn't super cut and dry in the presentations for the classes.
That's not fair! I was hidden by the statue!
What is attributed to the class and what is attributed to the skill? Because people, when they're seeing Path of Exile 2, they often forget that, I hope it's still true anyway, that skill gems are...
Okay, obviously, right. I mean, I'd be shocked if they say anything else. Obviously, that if you Path of Exile 2, you're gonna have the choices, right? You're not, yeah, a druid can shapeshift, but they introduce the skills thematically through class because they think that's like the best way to like onboard new people while keeping the game's depth. Obviously, you'd be able to pick any sort of class. I would be shocked if they've changed their philosophy on this, but it's Path of Exile, right? It's the game where anything can work. Well, in theory. Hello? Can you? Thank you. Jeez. Chat, am I fucking up something? Like, is Blazing Salvo just a horrible leveling skill? Am I stupid?
Just skill gems and can be used by any class. So the idea of attacking while moving when watching like the mercenary trailer, I guess the viewer doesn't know for sure if it's something that the mercenary gets or if it's something that's attributed to the skill.
Right. So the only thing that the classes actually technically get
is the spot of the passive
the
tree.
ascendancy classes that
Oh,
belong
right.
specifically to
Yeah,
them,
that too.
plus the starting position of the tree, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's still true in PoE too. It's just that whenever we're presenting like content, especially when we've got like an audience we expect to have a lot of new players in, we kind of tend to want to keep to the stereotypes and kind of not like go into that other side of things too much, because I think it just confuses the issues. And really, when you're presenting a class to someone, what you're kind of presenting to them is some kind of vision for what type of a character they might want to be. And so that tends to be what we focus on. But of course, I mean, at the end of the day, like, it is still very much my preference to have everything be as much as possible, like have interesting combos from other stuff. And we still have that very much like Magic the Gathering style idea of, you know, hey, you can splash for another color. There's other, you know, like use things off attribute, that kind of stuff. It's still very important to me. So yeah, like absolutely you can use, all of those things are part of the skill and not part of the class.
Another aspect to this was to the Mercenary trailer that I was quite interested in. So, again, we don't know how much of it has to do with the general gameplay, but in the Mercenary trailer, I mean, people should watch it, but when the Mercenary takes on the boss at the end of the trailer, the pacing of the boss fight is, I believe, he's kind of trying to dodge attacks. He's like debuffing.
Energy Blade is not good for leveling. You are correct.
Thank you. About like 30, it
Glad
just
to hear
dies
it.
super quick. And I'm guessing it's because he's stacking up all these debuffs throughout the fight. Is this something more tailored towards the Mercenary?
Listen, give it like 20 levels, all right? It's all we have left, 20 levels.
So generally speaking, we like, what I kind of, I guess the feeling I like to try and get is that you've got some kind of way to do really large amounts of damage, but you can't always necessarily perfectly execute that because of what the boss is doing. So in that particular thing, it wasn't actually that there were debuffs on the boss. I just managed to execute a perfect... so the combo I was using there was you use Incendiary Rapid Shot, which builds up like heat on your crossbow. And then with that, when you fire a grenade, the grenades get extra fire damage on them based on how much heat there was on the crossbow. And then you can then use Incendiary Power Shot.
The fuck is hitting me?
Grenades. So I just kind of managed to get all the grenades in the right place and get the like the maximum amount of heat on my crossbow at the time at that exact moment. And that's why I did like a really.
Am I still using combustion?
There. But in order to be able to get that, you need to be able to use Rapid Shot for enough time without having interruption to build up the heat and that kind of thing. So it's just a matter of kind of getting that sorted out. I think there also might have been something to do with the baby going on there. I can't remember the exact thing around that. But yeah, the bosses can go down very quickly if you know how to execute. And actually, an interesting thing with that is that the first time with the mercenary setup that we had for that trailer that I played the boss, that I killed it, it actually took me 5 minutes. And I said to Mark, hey man, what's up with this boss fight? Like, you know, that's taking way too long. Like, what are we doing here? And he's like, what are you talking about? It takes me like 1 minute at most. Like, you must be terrible. And then I tried it again immediately. And then the next time I played it, it took me 2 minutes without like me really realizing that I had particularly learned anything. So it actually turns out that, you know, it doesn't actually take long to learn the mechanics of the boss. And once you know them, the degree of increase in damage you can deal is so much higher. And that's because
okay, don't panic. Okay, it's just we don't panic. Okay, hold on. Hold on. Don't panic. That was where we were caught up when we started. Okay, hold on. I got way more coming. Everything.
Execute your combos, resulting in like.
Come on.
The Blind Beast. I was doing this demo with the Druid and the Blind Beast. A lot of the terrible. And then I tried it again immediately to loot quite as much because you don't know what to expect, and that allows you to kind of build up those various.
So we're back caught up now. Okay, sorry. So we're caught up now. The thing is when you talk about like 5-minute bosses the first time you play, this is from the guy making the fucking game, okay? Like, if you're just some guy and you're just playing the game for fun, like casually, is it going to take you longer than 5 minutes? Is it going to feel like you bricked your character? Because 5 minutes is a long time, right? And this is from a guy who like helped design the character. He knows the combos. And yeah, he said like after I played it again, it was shorter, but like that first experience matters. That's a long time. Like, I know Innocence just took me 5 minutes, but I'm a moron, okay? Like, I could have cleared that out way earlier if I used literally anything else and not an Energy Blade build. Or this is basically a gimped build until I hit level... I don't know, what, 67? Then it's better, but like, ugh. Shit, Ben's gonna take like 30 seconds. True.
Combos that let you execute large amounts of damage. So yeah, that's kind of what happened there. And so now, of course, like it's actually another case ahead of that was the blind beast. I was doing this demo with the druid and the blind beast just again and again and again and again. At the beginning, I was taking me like 3, 4, 5 minutes to kill that boss fight, and then by the time that I actually recorded the one that I think went online, it was done in like frickin' 30 seconds or something like that. And it's literally just from just playing the boss again and again. So it is sort of impressive how learning the mechanics does actually make you better at the game.
As a follow-up question, since you mentioned that this idea of figuring out where the DPS windows are and being able to properly execute your combos, resulting in like multiples more damage, is that perhaps something that might be a bit difficult to tune with multiplayer? Like if you had like a 2-player party and you just had a really tanky friend keeping the boss perfectly still, wouldn't that in a sense make it much easier?
It can do, but there are various factors. So a lot of the crowd control type mechanics have things built. So for example, freeze, right? If you freeze a boss.
Okay, so for me, to get me to play multiplayer, it's not that make the boss easier if you're in multiplayer. That would never get me to play multiplayer. For me to do multiplayer in Path of Exile, you have to offer a boss that plays differently with multiple players. Like the Blind Beast, for example, right? He operates a certain way when you're one player, a certain DPS window, etc., right? But if you have 2 people or more, I guess, then the fight changes a little and he does this other thing, or he has more sweeping moves, he has more AoE you have to dodge, that kind of deal to make everybody like participate in the fight. That would make me play PoE multiplayer, right? You need to get me another person. I would play with you if there was a reason to play multiplayer outside of it makes the game easier. No, I wouldn't mind it. It's just like, I want like a unique experience when I play multiplayer, not just like single player, but faster, you know? That's really what turns me off of like 5 ways and everything. It's just, it's leveling, but it's faster, you know? Fire resistant, fantastic. Is this worth my time killing? No, but I'll kill it anyway. This Sniper's Mark combo, it does a ton of single target damage. I just wish that I was like cast on crit right now so I could actually cast this thing all the time. Our Spectral Throw, by the way, look at this. Boom! Oh, look at that Energy Blade MTX. Oh, not pay to win. Beautiful. Oh man, that's gonna be a beautiful cast on crit skill. Sorry, I just wanted to show you that. Where? Oh, you mean this skill? So later on when this build is actually, later on when this build is actually done with like Ivory Tower and everything equipped, when I throw this out, what's gonna happen is this spell will get triggered like 6 times a second. So right now I'm casting 1.4 times a second. So imagine this, but like at least 3 times faster. And this is what triggers it. So every time this skill crits, and we're gonna be vroom, 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 that kind of deal. We may need a little bit of attack speed somewhere, but whatever. That's what Shaper's Touch is for, you know? Gary, that doesn't give attack speed. Don't worry about it. Multiplayer right now just feels like visual clutter, 5 times worse without too much benefit. Yeah, pretty much. I agree.
Takes longer. That's like a thing that kind of cools off over time. But effectively, like the more party members you have, there's kind of this like the various systems that work sort of like how poise works all respond to that. So that kind of means that someone sitting there stunning the monster is gonna, if you've got like multiple people doing that, it's going to get harder to sort of crowd control the boss over time. And then it should sort of come out to be relatively similar once you've reached the steady state, as it were, versus having single player. Once you take into account the amount of increase in life and all that other sort of stuff. So we kind of have to get that tuned exactly right, which I can't say we've done a huge amount of tuning so far on, honestly, because we still need to do a bunch of work there.
I knew it.
But ideally, the intention is kind of get it to the point where it sort of feels a little bit similar. But of course, there has to be room for synergy between between characters, right? And we definitely build that in as well. But yeah, it will. Ideally, you're not just going to completely trivialize the boss just because you've got a couple of extra players in your party. It's still
I've been playing PoE for. Wait. Oh, fuck. I was reading Crypt Chat. I was like, wait, who are these people?
All right. Now this is kind of where
Oh,
I
it's
meant
my
to ask
stream.
the
What the
question, but
fuck?
I guess I'll elaborate. I was still really curious what pushes a skill and how much of a role the ascendancies have to do with it. Again, we've seen the druid interpreted in other games where it is very much the class. That is, like, in other games, there's no other shape-shifting class. If you want to play a shapeshifter, you play the druid. Now, in PoE 2, I imagine the shape-shifting part is a skill gem that other classes can use.
Obviously.
So what makes the druid more of a druid? How much does the ascendancy have to do with it? Is it kind of in a way where it's like PoE 1, where they're just slightly better at it?
Okay, so I was about to say, traditionally, the way GGG handles things, and the way their design philosophy has been over the last couple of years, like the nerf to Necromancer, the nerf to, I was gonna say Gladiator, but Guardian, I guess? The way they change things is they don't want people to be like, I'm gonna be a shapeshifter, therefore, I'm a druid. They like the idea of anyone can do anything, and usually, from what I understand it, they want an ascendancy to be picked for a certain archetype as like the equivalent of like a league starter, or like this is what you do if you want the most basic, like rudimentary version of it, right? A berserker can shapeshift, or whatever the berserker equivalent is in the next game, if there even is one. Like, the berserker can shapeshift, but if you want a very basic style shapeshifting, you would play, druid. And it's going to be the same for other archetypes, too. I'm gonna die. Chat! Oh, I need a vitality and discipline watcher's eye. Chat, is discipline worth running on this build? It must be, right? Wonder if I should do that now. I think it's time. Let's drop vitality. Okay, fuck vitality. Let's pick up discipline real quick, and let's get this rolling here. Yeah, but who thinks druid and doesn't think this is a shapeshifting class? Yeah, true. Well, I think elemental too.
When we're doing ascendancy classes as well, it's another one of those cases where we try to make it so that the ascendancy classes can be relevant for builds even when you wouldn't think so. So like what we try to do is, like, you got an ascendancy class. If you look at it and what it's called and what it obviously looks like it should be doing, it is clearly going to be good at doing, what you expect the ascendancy class is going to be doing. But at the same time, we try to sort of word all the stats so that they don't technically require, that you're actually using shapeshift forms, for example. They just happen to be very good at the things that shapeshift forms happen to do, and you sort of look at it that way. But we do want to make it so that absolutely you should be able to play, a shapeshifting duelist or something like that. It can be something that we want to have scope for, even if it isn't necessarily common or the most obvious thing to do. But it's something we've always, like to try and make it so you can do that. You know what I mean?
All right. So you guys put out the date for the PoE 2 beta, I believe.
Oh, really, Jonathan? Is the Ancestral Totem Ascendancy good with totems? It's more like it's a different way to play them, right? Like, if all of your scaling is through Ancestral Totems, like your league starting melee, for example. Dude, if you're league starting melee, go Chieftain. Get the Ascendancy notables or whatever and just fuck shit up. Like, you will mess with people, except it doesn't exist anymore, so RIP. Yeah, hello? What? Oh, he's fire resistant. Fantastic. Stop.
It's in early June, and this is going to be a pretty big milestone. I kind of wanted to ask a pretty broad and general question, and I have no idea what to expect for a reply because I'm sure there's still a lot of things in the work. But what can people expect out of this beta? Like, are we going to see
they said everything
whole game up until the point where it's developed, or are we just going to have kind of like a shareware limited act version like we've seen from more recent titles?
I think it's everything.
So the plan is the whole game, but
yeah,
obviously, we're not necessarily going to finish everything. I don't think that the entire end game will be there. Like, we're sort of
which is
planning
fine.
probably around like 60 maps as like a sort of starting point.
Yeah.
For the end game. There will be a couple of other end game systems in there as well. But I obviously don't really want to talk too much about them right now. We really do need to make sure that it's the whole campaign at the very least, and maps as well, just so that we can actually do progress.
So as far as I understand on the Reddit, yeah, that was kind of what I was expecting. Apparently, leading up from beta to release, like on a once a month basis, they're going to implement a league. Could be Abyss, could be Delirium, whatever. We know Delirium is going to exist in some facet in the new game, maybe not cluster jewels, but we do know it'll exist. And I think during beta is when they're going to implement like the current league mechanics and just slowly over time like update them to the new game, right? Like I could see a world where Delve exists but fossils and essences don't, or at least in a much nerfed capacity, because they talked about that before, where like they love the idea of crafting, they just don't want it to be so broad where everything can work with everything else. They'd rather have it be like essences are good for body armor and Delirium is good if you want gloves. They really like that kind of system where it's going to be much more limited, which is fine because the game is designed around it. But holy cow, hope we get some dang good glove mods out of that to make it entertaining. The month where Arch Nemesis drops, Monka S. No, the way well, I found this out the hard way. Rares at ExileCon, they were just PoE 1 rares, but they whooped your ass. So that was fun. By the way, we're gonna die like twice to Katava.
Testing, because if we can't test the whole game, we're kind of not really learning anything on that economic front, and I think that is one of the more important things we can get out of the beta, and making sure that there's nothing too kind of like I don't know, like nothing that's like breaking the game too hard, because during beta, obviously once you're out of beta, right, like we can never remove items or really, like they have to exist forever at that point, right? So we want to make sure that everything's good there. But, making sure that the progression is good and all that stuff really just requires the whole game to kind of be there. So yeah, it won't be like all content, but it will be, like not especially not an end game, but it will be a very sizable amount of it. And there might be like a couple of classes that we can't initially do. I'm hoping we can do all of them, but we'll sort of see where we get to with that. But it should be most of them at the very least.
Okay, fuck this, yeah, Jesus.
I honestly, like, I should hope that anyone who's in the beta would see it as a game that is like fully, like, has full quality and as big or bigger than any other kind of action RPG title that you would get.
Whoa, that's a big claim, Mr. Jonathan. You think that we should consider, this is from the words of Jonathan, we should consider PoE 2 beta to be a fully released game that has more content than most action RPGs. Okay, Jonathan, those are big words. I'm gonna remember that. Those are very big words. Hi, Fonzie.
Well, that's great.
Listen, you can't judge listen, chat, you can't judge my DPS because we haven't even put on our build yet. Give me like 20 levels. Okay, rippling thoughts all over again. Give me like 20 levels. We're gonna put on Ivory Tower. It'll be great.
The internet where people are talking about PoE 2, the
5-minute innocence, you son of a bitch.
Play PoE 1. Their main concern has to do with Path of Exile in general as a genre being a bit complex, and with new game releases generally trying to at least touch upon broad appeal. Is there some things that PoE 2 is tackling differently than PoE 1 to kind of grab the attention of some prospective players?
So I think that, like, this is kind of one of those really complicated ones, because it is very important to us that we never dumb the game down to the extent that, you won't be able to do all the interesting stuff that we're not.
Good.
But at the same time, we do obviously understand the fact that, we're known as a very complicated game. And I think it's sort of interesting because there are certain things about that. So I've actually been talking a lot recently with people on the team about this and like what we can do to kind of improve things. And I think there's kind of a mix.
Improve what
of
things?
Factors. On the one hand, you've got stuff that we've already kind of like announced that how we're fixing it. Stuff like this, the way the skill system works, I think is just like way better for new players. This kind of thing is just straight up improvement.
Jesus.
But I think that there are things like I mean, there was a recent conversation on Reddit as well about the skill tree and what we're doing about it. And I think a lot of people, I think there's a lot of subtlety with it because it's like,
what's he saying?
A lot of people are like, oh, you should just have like free respecs all the time so that it's just easy, and if you make a mistake, it's no problem. This kind of thing. And I kind of look at that and I'm like, I don't know that that's really necessarily going to solve the problem. I think.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I agree with most of what Jonathan's saying here, that you don't want full respecs, right? You want people to feel invested in your character. Otherwise, why wouldn't you just play one character and just, re-roll them 20 million times? I like that you have to have a little time investment, It makes me, this is why I respect Mathel so much as like a build creator. Because like when Mathel plays a build, he does what I do, which is like, you play the build from level 1. Like I'm playing Blazing Salvo right now, Like I've never leveled with Blazing Salvo before, but it's fun as shit first time. This is why I think I don't mind the campaign compared to a lot of other content creators. I've done the campaign as much as anyone else. It's just because I do a different skill every time in prep for, the Ivory Tower cast on crit, fucking Spectral Throw build. Because of that, it's kind of cool that, we get to like see this benefit, see this come up over time. That's kind of cool, right? I don't know. I think that's kind of sweet. And then that's why I respect Mathel so much. So in that regard, yeah, it is going to be better for new players because you have access to like all the skill trees and you see the archetypes. Yeah, I think it'll be, I agree with Jonathan here. Full respecs are bad, but PoE is really punishing in that regard. In what way are they punishing? Like, is it extra hard to re-roll compared to other RPGs? Diablo 2, you didn't get full re-rolls. In Diablo 2, when you fucking press that button, that shit was permanent, okay? Gary, they updated it. Yeah, I know. Okay, when Diablo 3 came out, they gave you full re-rolls in Diablo 2, but they didn't exist when I played the fucking game, okay? So I remember, like, because the skill tree was always on the right side, I remember, like, building up skill points as a sorceress because I didn't. Well, no, sorry. Sorceress is not a good example because you would alternate between Warmth, because fuck mana potions, Warmth and Frostbolt because it synergized with Frozen Orb. But like when you leveled as a sorceress, right, and you got your fucking Warmth and Frostbolt, no, it's not a good example because you'd be level 40. At that point, you are doing Frozen Orb. What's a better example? Barbarian. So as a barbarian, you're not fucking putting everything into bash, you don't have a reroll. So what you would do is you would build up some points, put like 1 point in bash, and save up your points so that way you can get your, all resistance, fucking axe specialization, war cry, and just level all 3 at once, It's extra hard for new players who are still learning the passive tree and what's good or not. Yeah, but that's the fun of the game. That's the fun part.
We've kind of got this issue of like trying to communicate information in a both succinct way so it doesn't kind of scare people off, but also enough information you actually sort of get everything. So I've been looking into ways recently about how we can kind of do that. And I think that, this is like a feature that we've just been proposing recently, but kind of haven't actually gone any way towards implementing yet. But we're talking about like making it so that when you go to allocate stats on the passive tree, that it's more clear whether or not the skills that you have equipped would actually be affected by it. Like this kind of thing. Like we've been discussing sort of like, what are the common pitfalls that people are going to run into. But the other thing as well is that we're planning on just doing some straight up usability testing.
Sorry, I got fucking fucked in this zone. I hate this zone, dude. It's so... I just feel like I'm perma-stunned. Anyway, yeah, classic examples, Righteous Fire, right? Where it's like, oh, I'm gonna get spell damage, ma! Not realizing that Righteous Fire isn't technically a spell. And you just get fucked by it. Like, okay, in that regard, yeah, I could see it. There's a very fine line, though, between, like, that and, well, why don't you just do what POB does and just let you highlight the passives that give you the most damage, That kind of feels weird, because it's not necessarily true, right? I run it in and out to make pizza. Are we talking about how dogshit D2 was in that regard, or how you think it's good? Gosh. It was probably bad, Fonzie. I didn't like it. However, what I did like is that at the end of it, it felt really, really good to like work through that process because I don't know, it wasn't worth it. Like the journey was not worth the destination, or sorry, the destination. No, fuck, that is right. Yo, yeah, the destination wasn't worth the journey because the journey was just so boring to not use points. So I'm glad they implemented some sort of reroll. I just don't think it should be like a full, like, press a button, all your points are back kind of reroll. That was kind of dumb that Blizzard did that, but, you know, it's Blizzard. I would much rather prefer selective passive refunds, like Path of Exile.
We've got, like, in the future, we've got a usability lab that we're going to be using to kind of, like, test with completely just, like, players that are off the street and just kind of see, you know, like, how they respond to things, like, do they understand things? So, you know, there's a lot we can do here, and it is going to be a focus, but at the same time, I just don't want people to hear from that the idea that, oh, you know, we're just going to make the game, we're just going to dumb it down, you know what I mean? Like, it is really important that we not do that.
Well, that's good to hear.
They really want to avoid that,
I was browsing the wiki, because there is a PoE2 wiki. It's kind of just a list of information, and I'm sure, again, some of it, not necessarily outdated as far as the public knows,
but Diablo
but
2...
like to touch.
Yeah, but Diablo 2... I have to bounce back between, like, 2 different streams here. Yeah, but Diablo 2 had like 4 options to choose from, not this massive dendrologist wet dream. It's not that players will struggle without changing the build made campaign. It's that getting into maps and finding that you have to rerun the whole campaign again because your first character sucks is disheartening. Well, that's what's going to be addressed. Okay, that sounds bad right now because you've played this campaign so many times, but in PoE 2, they've explicitly said, like, the day one goal is we want a campaign that you can run 1,000,000 times and never get bored. So you make it sound like rerunning the whole campaign is bad, but if they design the game where rerunning the campaign is like an extremely fun thing to do, then is it that bad? Like, that's where I think their design space is. That's what they've talked about anyway.
Upon the subject, because we're bringing it up again. One thing that PoE has gotten some attention for is kind of like the instant logout that's especially used by
They've talked about
players.
this.
On the wiki, I found that there is set to be a 2.5-second cast time for opening portals mid-combat, and taking damage will interrupt it.
It is actually just in boss
Hold on,
fights.
I got distracted.
Crip,
you were at ExileCon. You played the fucking game. When you town portaled, you had... I kind of died because Crip just didn't realize this. When you went... Because at ExileCon, right? So if you fought a boss, when you were in the boss fight, you pressed portal, you had like a 2-second... Well, probably long. It felt longer than 2 seconds to open the portal, right? Because they didn't want you to just leave on a whim, you know? They even showed that during the boss fight thing. So I'm surprised the asset, like on the wiki, it says when it was like at ExileCon. So it sounds like they might change it?
When you're not in a boss fight. But yes, the idea is to actually prevent you from doing that, right? Like we want you to actually have to actually fight the boss and be able to kill it in one go, ideally. Or maybe that there's a few points in the boss fight where, you know, where you would be able to take the opportunity. But the key thing is there's still some skill there. It's not just, you know, it isn't just a matter of like, you know, like go in, go out here, you know, that kind of thing.
So you try to find the window where you can cast your portal.
Okay, I'm sure they've addressed this, but it seems like every fight in PoE 2, there's like a, hey, I'm the big boss and I'm gonna be threatening. I'm gonna sharpen my sword, and then you like start the fight. Wouldn't everybody and their mother just immediately open a portal as soon as the boss fight starts? Like, even before if you can. So maybe there's like a time limit on there. I never tested that. Never really had a chance, to be honest. But I didn't even think about that. If there's no time limit on the portal, then hey, cool. You know how to abuse it.
To kind of reset your flasks and, you know, kind of maybe make a quick change. But if you, my understanding, and I think this was the case for the demo at ExileCon this year, if you die, the boss encounter does reset, right?
Correct.
That's planned.
And I've also learned, again, on the wiki, so again, I'm not sure if this is current, but apparently you can pause during solo play. Is that right?
Yep.
Yep, you can.
Do you see this as potentially being abused by hardcore players, pausing in a moment where they for sure will know they'll die and they'll just wait for like the next patch cycle or hotfix to like reset their character's position?
Okay, Crip, that's so dumb. Please, that's not a good question. Yes, pausing in Path of Exile 2 is one of the single best changes they have possibly made, okay? Hardcore players can indeed pause and help them, like, get out of the situation, like interpret what's going on. But that's good. I don't mind that. All right. Obviously, if you pause it and the patch resets everything, okay, whatever. It's a whatever. It's fine. I don't care personally. But like, I kind of like the idea of pausing and then reading the buff. Because like Ben had a clip about this recently, right? Where he's like, he talked about like the debuff during the fight guy thing, the Mist King, whatever he's called in the league mechanic. Ben was like, dude, I don't know why Reddit downvoted the guy who was like, just read the thing, because everybody on Reddit's like, no, it should be visual. It should be visual. When like, if you just highlight the thing, it just tells you what the debuff is and what you have to do. With pausing, now you don't have an excuse. You can just pause the game, read the debuff. Oh, that's what it means. Unpause the game. So I really, really like that now there's no excuses for people not to read debuffs. What's the problem? Just read the debuffs at the 0.05 seconds you have? Ben read it, and then he got out of it alive, so I don't know. Seemed like it worked. If he could do it, why can't you?
So you can.
It's the League practice. If you can play it slow, you can play it fast.
Always log out and reset the boss fight whenever you want, right? Like you're not going to. If you Alt F4, ultimately, that ends the boss fight, right? Because yeah, because you can log back in and start from scratch.
Yeah, why does it feel like we have no damage?
Is just whittle the boss down, like one, like log out, go back to town, heal, go back to the boss, and then continue from scratch. You know what I mean? So like it is actually. I mean, maybe okay isn't the word, but it is a thing you can do.
What's my fire resistance? From 30. That's why.
To prevent your death. And I think that is something that there is really no solution for, if it even honestly needs solving. Like it's but because now, but in PoE1, the cost wasn't high enough, right? Because like you just go back and take.
Oh my god! I need fire resistance. Oh god!
You still
what
have
do I
to
do?
be able to kill the boss in one
belt. That's the answer.
In one go, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
In PoE2, which was not the case before. So, and this actually, by the way, is something that we have to be really
careful about. Don't I have like an amulet for like
bosses
stuff
that are progression blocking can be actually progression blocking, right? Like, like
hold on, I have an amulet, don't I?
You can't continue the game in some cases, right? If it's an act boss.
Oh no, it's cold resist. Fuck.
There's people have to get good in some cases, but also we have to just be really careful that those progression blocking bosses don't, completely alienate people as well.
With that in mind, I'm actually something that came to mind is it going to be like a one campaign per character type of thing, or will you be able to like have multiple characters to kind of help with the bosses along to kind of alleviate the progression?
Wait, Crip, what was your question?
Per character.
Bosses don't, completely alienate people as well.
With that in mind, I'm actually something that came to mind is it going to be like a one campaign per character type of thing, or will you be able to like have multiple characters to kind of help with the bosses along to kind of alleviate the progression?
So maybe I'm dumb, but maybe they just talked about it. I didn't hear it. So here's the thing, okay? Obviously, no, I need this ring, don't I? Oh, no, I don't. Based. Okay, we're going to keep that ring, though. We're in a situation right now where in PoE2, you have to kill every optional boss in the game in order to get, like, maximum spirit. So it really is, like, mandatory. We're in that position, right? So I think Crip is asking here is, like, do you have to do that on every character, or can we just not, I think you have to, right?
Sorry, I'm not quite sure what you mean about that. But I mean, you will have to complete the campaign on each character.
Okay.
But you can always like, I mean, just like in PoE1, right? Like, there's things you can do.
Oh, it's cycling damage rotation. Okay, I get it.
No, I was thinking like if you had a character that really wasn't good at all against a certain boss, could you get your other character to kill it for that one?
Oh, I see what you mean. No. So yeah, it doesn't work like that. It basically works like PoE1 in this regard.
Okay.
Yeah. Although interestingly, actually, scratch that. I was about to say something. I realized we haven't announced it yet.
I don't have a red gem. God damn it.
So I have maybe a difficult question for you, but around the time we got Ruthless, we started hearing some of the news for PoE2, and a lot of it kind of matched up. And we'll talk about the crafting bench and all that being removed, just kind of similar features in a way.
There we go.
Ruthless
Max
in PoE1
fire, baby.
has seen kind of like lukewarm popularity. Personally, I really like it. I think it's maybe a
much better.
More ruthless than I would like. But I mean, like I'm playing non-ruthless this league.
Agreed.
And so far this league, I've found about 30,000 alteration.
Oh my god.
to where I don't even bother using an augmentation orb because it takes too much time to click it back and forth, right? So obviously the answer is somewhere in between the two. But
I agree.
Okay, Crip, that is a long-ass question. So Crip is saying that he loves Ruthless, but it's a little too ruthless, even though just this league, they did in fact buff the currency drops. Jonathan is saying he agrees. I am interested to see why, or like, what's Jonathan? Like, I've heard a lot of developers talk about Ruthless, but I've never heard Jonathan's opinion on it. I'm sure he's going to talk about it when Crip's done soliloquying about like what he thinks of Ruthless. But like, I am interested to see what the developer of PoE2 thinks, because for a long time, people were saying like, hey, Ruthless is PoE2, but it sounds like Jonathan doesn't agree with that. I don't know if he agrees with that or he doesn't agree with that because everybody freaked out about it, but still. Oh my god, please. Fire resistant mobs! Okay.
How are you designing the kind of the pacing of the game and the abundance of currencies and items and all that? What has the goal changed, seeing Ruthless not like explode in popularity?
Yeah, I was about to say they might have changed.
So there's a lot to talk about here, like a lot. So I guess the first thing with Ruthless is I think Ruthless did definitely go too far. And more to the point, I actually think Ruthless bundled in too many things in one go. I think if Ruthless had just been item drop changes and hadn't done a lot of other things that Ruthless did, like, for example, crafting bench removal and the movement skill stuff and like a bunch of other that stuff, I think it actually would have gone down a lot better. And I also think as well that there probably wasn't enough attention paid to map sustain and a few other details like that. Like, in particular, I think one of the major philosophical things we did learn from Ruthless is that we need to make sure not to reduce the access to content being a big thing. Like, I think that Ruthless did make it too hard to get access to content.
Okay. That's an interesting little opinion there. So he's saying that he likes Ruthless. He thinks it would have been more popular had it just been reduced item changes and not anything else. Also, hi Fonzie. Sorry, I don't know if I actually said hello. I hope you're doing well. So he's saying that he likes Ruthless, but it went too far and he doesn't like content being locked. It's interesting he said they learned that. That's an interesting way to phrase it. So I guess they didn't realize like locking progression behind just a lack of content is just really boring. I guess it wasn't. I guess it's easy to say in hindsight that was a bad idea, but like, I guess if you're making the game, you wouldn't have known that, right? I wonder, would I have played Ruthless if it was just harder access to items? Would I still enjoy it? Because so much power comes from like ascendancies and spells and all that. It'd be like, isn't that just SSF light? Also, farming for hours just to get one map of the next tier is too much? No way. Oops, I frost blinked in the wrong direction. So let's think about that for a second. Hold on. If so he's saying that, yeah, no, isn't that just SSF light? I mean, you're still in. The whole point of SSF is that your whole gearing process is slower because you don't trade for it. So do we want SSF to be more tradey, or do we want SSF to be like even slower on item progression, but everything else is the same? Would that be a fun mode? So gem drops would be like item drops, right? Do we want gems to be rare? If not, then like, why not just do what a normal league start is, except you just have worse items? So like, I don't know. Isn't just a normal, I loved that gems were drop only. Yeah, I didn't mind it either. It was just, or support gems, but like, I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know if I would like that mode because it's just like a regular SSF league start, except you play spells the same. It's just they're a little worse. I don't know. Is that fun? I could see why they made more changes than that.
And also, like, probably the currency was a bit too rare. There's like various things about that that were just, I think, not quite right. But also, and I'd love to fix those in Ruthless, honestly, but the problem with that is that whenever we say, hey, we're doing a bunch of Ruthless stuff to improve it,
oh, people complain.
Why are you working on Ruthless? You know what I mean? Like, so I don't think that, like, the ship has kind of sailed there, unfortunately, which is a bit of a shame. Which isn't to say we won't ever address it, but I think we at least learned a lot from Ruthless to help there. So, I mean, I guess that's one side of things, but the next side of things, I guess, just comes into all of the general philosophy of how item drops should be should be done.
Oh, come on.
And I think everyone can agree that we definitely need to fix the fact that the amount of shit on the screen is so high that, I mean, like, okay, so random thing, Mark was decided that what he was going to do this league in PoE 1 was play the, like, ultra ridiculous item finding strategies. You know, he's never actually done the, like, full-on crazy strategies before.
Oh, good league for it.
And one of the things he ran into was the fact that when you have you get to a certain point, you can't even press Alt anymore, because the game client will take so long to have all of the pop-ups appear on screen that you get disconnected from the server. So that's not so good. There's definitely some problems there. So yeah, that's obviously the other side of the extreme. But I guess I'm interested to actually hear your question about this, because this was an interesting one. Is what do you think should be the difference in amount of value that, say, an average, like, let's say 50th percentile player gets versus a 99th percentile player? Like, I'm interested to hear what kind of multiplier you believe is good.
That's okay. Let's come back to that in a second. The problem is that in SSF, some map drops are way too common, and some drops are way too common, and others straight up don't exist. I mean, you say that, but I mean, I'm sure you found plenty of higher tier uniques that you just don't use. You know, like obviously Ivory Tower. That's a chest that's decently common, right? I found an Ivory Tower like a couple of times in my life. But, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think if there's anything. Wrathpith? That would be extremely hard to get in SSF, wouldn't it? I don't think that's targetable. I think that's just a random drop. So I don't know. As far as what he asked, what should be the difference in loot between the 50th percentile and the 99th percentile? What should be the difference? There should be a difference. You should have more drops. What about this league? Do we feel okay with the 99th percentile dropping 80 plus divines on a single rare in a T16, fully juiced, league mechanic with like 6,000 plus wisp, fucking full magic find? Are we okay with that? I think I'm okay with that. I am fine with that. That doesn't bother me that other people get really, really, really rich, you know? It's never like ruined my experience, like when other players are just better at the game than me, or they're just richer than me in the game. That's never like bothered me, especially in Path of Exile where the economy resets every few months. I think the rate at it is, I think it's fine. I feel like I have enough money when I do actually play the game that I don't feel like I'm super far behind or anything. So I think it's justified.
It's really,
like it's really tough. I don't know. I quite like the ruthless economy. I quite like it because everything has significance, and everything has significance. Like after
the
playing
fuck?
Ruthless quite a lot
cycling damage reduction, cute.
Like 2-3 weeks, I start to have an overabundance of transmutation orbs, right? So that's when they start losing their value. I feel that's honestly a good point to be at. You know, when a currency that's fairly regularly dropping becomes worthless, being like 2 weeks for a hardcore player in. Just everything kind of mattering is one of the really big appeals for Ruthless for me.
You died way too much that zone, by the way.
The conversation of the average player versus, you know, the top 1% player kind of gets lost in Trade League because people are really good at manipulating the economy, or people are really good.
Doesn't attract me in SSF.
Where that model gets completely destroyed. So I really hesitate to give an answer in numbers there.
I think you still need to have a reasonably large disparity between like average, like 50th percentile and 99th percentile. Because
Agreed.
That's kind of the thing that you're striving for a lot of the time, is increasing your drop rate. And so I actually think that one of the issues is, then the other question is, alongside this, to kind of, let's establish some constants here, right? So I would say, and this may seem like a high number, but I think that you need a difference of 1,000 times between the best player and the average player of amount of wealth acquisition. So that is the same number of
100
items,
times.
like saying like value of the stuff that you're getting, and that's so that you've got something to strive for, right? Like you need that level of like of disparity from the bottom to the top, to kind of make it actually like to actually give some form of feeling of like I'm getting better at this game, I'm improving, what I'm doing. So
whoa,
I don't know if does that number seem high or low for you? Like, what do you reckon? How does that feel to you?
It's if you're considering the trading prowess of market geniuses, then it doesn't seem high. If we're talking about efficient play with stacking the right mechanics,
well, it's the 99th percentile, right? That's self-explanatory. It's meant for like the extreme like trade min-maxers, like the kind of people who run like super magic findy kind of situations like Mark was doing this league. I think yeah, I'm fine with those people being rich because they spend a lot of their time like figuring out the best way to get rich. Like if you nerfed their favorite strategy, they would just find another way to get rich. Like they'll still do it, it's just a little bit slower in the end. So I'm okay with it. I don't have any problem at all with like players better than me making a shit ton more money.
Very high. So I just don't know what we're talking about exactly.
Sure. Well, I think we're just talking about like let's just say let's say from a map that you're running when you're as I said you're an average player running a map versus the absolute max mega juiced crazy map.
99.
Like in terms of the amount of wealth coming from it. And so as I said, that may seem high, but actually I think you do need those kinds of numbers to achieve that. And so then the next question is, okay, well, how many more items can you actually drop on the ground from one to the other to actually feel reasonable? And I think that number's kind of not really more than 2x. Like maybe it's a little bit more than that, but the thing is, like on the actual ground, you probably don't want to see more than double the number of items from one to the other, and yet you need to feed, and you need to actually be receiving 1,000 times the value. So if we kind of break that down, I mean, like so there's a few things that go into this. So one question is, and this sort of matters, is that efficiency of your build comes into it. Like how fast can you do a map? Because that does that does come into the kind of like 1,000 number. So like if for example the difference between an average player and a 1% player is like 10x in like speed of playing a map. So like so if
speed, what's my slash played
in 20 minutes and it takes a good player 2 minutes, for example.
5 hours, fuck.
Then you've already kind of divided that by 10, which means that the actual items on the ground have to be 100 times more valuable per map. And I think that probably sounds like something that seems within the realm of reasonableness, I would hope.
I see.
Act 6, 5 hours. What am I, a chump?
As well is that if the amount of items on the actual ground per monster you kill is only 2x higher, then that means you've got like you have to be able to have increase of rarity be worth 50 times, right? So basically, you have to be able to increase the value of items on the ground by 50 times. With just like rarity bonuses alone, and it needs to feel 50 times more as well. It's not enough to just be like, in theory, I kind of know that this is more valuable. It has to really feel like you're getting 50 times more wealth.
Well, I actually had a question later on about magic find.
Yeah, I'd say MP gets 100 times more currency than I don't think so. MP gets a lot of currency, but he does 6-man groups, so that currency is divided by 6, and frankly, probably more than that even, because there's more people in his party besides 6 people. Like, there's a whole group they have going. So that wealth, yeah, it makes for big, good streaming content with the huge loot explosion, but that loot explosion is divided by, 7, 8 people, so it's probably still 100 times.
And in PoE 2, now, if I had to ask this question a month ago...
Hello? Crip? Oh no! Hold on. Really?
To be able to deal with as part of it.
I hate Twitch VODs. You want to know what YouTube would do if I ran out of VOD? They would just fucking play the rest of the VOD.
Build is, like part of the, I guess, the trade-off you're making when it comes to like, how, like you need a bit of tension to make defense.
We already know this. Or no, we didn't know that.
Opinions about this. But I do particularly like the ones that involve being some kind of map that has interesting mechanics.
Mechanics you like.
That you effectively, when you have an economy, effectively what you're always going to target farm is whatever has the most value.
San Majin, one day I'll see Gary doing a VTuber concert or something like that. One meme. One day, I agree. We'll do a concert. Not going to be a music concert. But a concert I could see. I hope you're doing well. It's been a while.
The thing you actually want for yourself, you're just going to be like, okay, here's the thing that's going to have the most trade value, like per hour played on average. So therefore, I just play that. So I think that the way that that works in PoE 1 with div cards is not so great. It sort of means that the people who, at least the people who want to get the most economic value, just end up farming one map forever and ever and ever.
Crimson Prison Gang is what they're
that's
called,
the one,
apparently.
So that's a problem. So I don't have an immediate solution to that.
Really?
There's been various solutions proposed. Basically changing the way that div cards work. I think, as I said, and I think in SSF, it's cool. I like it. We need to do something different, I think, here. There'll be some discussion about that. I do think div cards are cool. I'd like to see them come back in PoE 2. We'll find a way, I suspect, to make that happen. But I don't know if they're necessarily going to work exactly the same mechanically as they do now.
Well, how about this? We talk a lot about div cards, but I think there's a dividing line. What if we had access to every unique in the game? Do we still want div cards in SSF? Is that something we want? I wonder if people are just like, hey, I want to be able to have access to some build defining uniques because I want to do that, but I'm also SSF, so fuck me, right? If we have access to uniques another way, like, do we still want div cards SSF players? Like, is that something you desire? Because I don't know how much people would want div cards at the end of the day if, like, it's not something you can, like, farm uniques for,
I've been scouring the internet for all the PoE 2 news, and that's included all your recent PoE 2 interviews. And there was an interview you did at PAX West.
So good for
where,
Gambas? Fair.
You were asked what league mechanics are going to be ported over, at least roughly, from PoE 1 into PoE 2.
Probably like 8 of them.
And your answer was it kind of almost depends on which league mechanics you like. And it killed me that there was no follow-up question. So what PoE 1 league mechanics do you like?
Abyss.
Okay, well, I am a
Delirium.
big fan of Delve.
Okay.
Delve, true.
And Incursion. Those are two of my favorites, partly because I just enjoyed development of them. Like, they were just really cool and thematic. I really enjoyed them. But I mean, there's lots of other mechanics that are just hugely, that are very popular.
It's worth noting that Delve and Incursion and Delirium were like the last league mechanics developed before they started work on PoE 2. I'm just putting that out there. So what you're saying is we should add something to replace the exact use case of div cards and then remove div cards? No, but like, if you want like uniques, then you can do this mechanic. If you want like the ability to gamba on shit, you can do this mechanic. Like div cards seem like a very artificial way of like solving the problem of SSF players want access to playing a lot of the game that would otherwise be unlocked only through playing trade. And if we can accomplish that through fun gameplay mechanics rather than the div card system as we currently have it, I think that would make a better video game overall. I think that would be a more nuanced video game than what we currently have,
Players, things like Ultimatum and things like that, these are great. I mean, I love Ultimatum too, but like there are certain crowd favorites for sure. Incursion. Sorry, I already said that one.
I need a +1 proj.
One of my favorites in there
on the Spectral Throw, don't I?
They don't have to be in PoE 2. This is a commitment answer here.
I'm just trying to think of like what are my other favorite ones. Breach, obviously. Breach was one of the earliest leagues that I really felt there was just something really.
Breach.
Because what was before Breach? There wasn't really that many good ones before
Legion,
there, right?
I think, was before Breach.
No.
Was Legion before Breach?
Yes. Breach was like fucking 2.4.
Probably not. Am I wrong about that? Jeez.
No, Breach was like before even 3.0.
Maybe I'm just wrong about that.
Oh,
but hey,
apparently I'm wrong about that. Okay.
You are. It's okay. It's a long time ago.
Okay.
It's like 10 years ago.
Anyway, Breach, I'm a big fan of. There's a few other things like Delirium is pretty cool. There's definitely some cool things like that.
Delirium, yeah.
Generally speaking, though, a lot of the leagues that are my favorite ones are the ones which involve, and I know this is kind of going to be a bit in the community. People have different opinions about this.
Timer.
But I do particularly like the ones that involve being some kind of map that has interesting mechanics on it, and you go out and you do stuff on it, which is why I particularly like things like Delve. But
Oh, a map you go and do things. So like the current league mechanic. I got you. Okay, I was wondering what he was saying. We're getting all the hybrid ES health nodes because I'm dying. And ES's damage at this point. Let's slam out these last 2 nodes here, and then we'll get like the big. Let's get the big health nodes first. Fuck it. But right now we're in a situation where every point of strength is 1% increased crit strike chance. So we have to keep that in mind as we go here. Like sanctity is 10% increased crit, etc. So as we kind of wind through the tree here, because I think this is the most we're gonna travel on the tree. Maybe we come down here. We probably should come down here, huh? Get all the crit chance before we start. Actually, is this even worth it? Because these 2 nodes are the equivalent, ignoring the crit multi. These 2 nodes are the equivalent of like 45 strength with no other bonuses besides the crit chance. It almost seems not even worth it, you know? We should get the life though. That's 20 strength right there. This is 20% increased crit chance. Yeah, I think we should come down here. But besides that, we've kind of done our traveling, I think. So I think at this point we're just filling out a lot of the tree. Like we need the armor ES mastery. That's going to be pretty huge. Because increases it. Hold on. So there's actually a lot of these masteries are really good. That's why we're probably getting 2 of them. Because the mastery of increases and reductions to armor also apply to energy shield. Well, guess what, bitch? We're doing determination and probably grace. It depends. Grace, because we're using a Shaper's Touch, which gives us 2% increased evasion rating per 10 intelligence. We're planning on it like at least 1,000 intelligence and strength. So Shaper's Touch alone gives us 200% increased evasion. With grace, that should get us like 25,000 evasion or something stupid like that. 22,000. So that'll be pretty good. That'll be pretty sweet. Oh, can't wait to equip those. It's going to be a lifesaver, chat. 15 more levels. The point of div cards is just target farming, not specifically SSF.
I know in the community a lot of people prefer leagues that are inside an area. So we tend to try to have a mix.
Ritual! Ritual's not coming back,
like,
rip.
When it comes to designing leagues, my favorite way to do it is kind of look at other games and be like, okay, what are some interesting, like other games from completely different genres, and be like, how can we do some of the interesting gameplay from one of these and make it
like Harvest Moon and Harvest.
What I most enjoy.
Stardew Valley.
And so I was kind of one of the people who really enjoyed things like Harvest, even though it was way too complicated, and they were also
fucking call me the psychic.
Is now, but the old way Harvest was, like things like that were really cool. But yeah, there were issues for sure.
Well, other than the gameplay side of things, one thing that I think is really important personally for a league mechanic is that it offers something you can't get anywhere else. Like if you want to double corrupt an item, then you do template. Just have to. You can't get.
For sure.
Yeah. So is that going to be at least thought process behind league design in PoE2?
100%. It's very important.
Is that true?
Like that is what the end.
Hold on. Let's think about this for a second. Is that true? I guess because if you do delve, you get fossils, but you can get fossils via other league mechanics if you don't like delving, right? That was the point of your investments, right? Is like to invest in like a specific mechanic and like focus on it because you enjoy that mechanic the most, and you can still get fossils from like heisting, for example. What is this map? So if we have like rewards from specific league mechanics, like prototypes only coming from heist, do we want that more or less? I don't know. I guess double corruption is specific to incursion, but well, no, you can get it from div cards, I guess, for whatever that's worth. I don't know. It's interesting.
Game makes the end game feel like there's a lot of variety because you've got different goals. Like, oh, now I have to do this. Now I have to do this. Like, it adds a lot of variety to things. So it's really important that different content has different rewards that are possible from it, for sure.
I have a few questions about specific skills. Now, there's been a lot of new skills highlighted, a lot of combination of skills, a lot of skill modification with a few of the supports you've highlighted. But there are a few skills in PoE1 that I feel have kind of become the game for some players. So I wanted to
Spectral Throw. He's going to say Spectral Throw. Oh, Crip. Crip, say Spectral Throw. Say Spectral Throw.
kind of point those out, and if you can, maybe mention if there will be a skill like it in PoE 2. So first up on the list, as probably many people might expect me to ask you, is Righteous Fire. Will we have a Righteous Fire?
Oh, come on.
PoE 2?
What a meme.
There will be Righteous Fire.
There
will
will
it
be
work
Righteous
exactly
Fire.
identically? No, but ideally it should feel like the same type of thing, and the flavor of Righteous Fire should all come across completely. But ideally we can do it in a way where it feels like there's interesting combos with it, has interesting mechanics that can work alongside it, and so on. So yeah, like absolutely there will be Righteous Fire.
Yeah, that's
and ideally
fine.
there should be
Fire
any
resistant.
kind of really iconic thing from PoE 1, like any kind of iconic skill. We will really need to find a place for it in PoE 2 as well.
Spectral throw!
We did have a discussion about the exact mechanics of how Righteous Fire works. We did come up with a plan, so hopefully you guys will enjoy it when you when we talk about it. I believe it should be in the Templar announcement at some point.
Okay.
The Templar
closer to home
announcement
for me
skills.
is about minions. Now you have mentioned that minions exist in PoE 2, so we know that already. But I was personally curious if there is more of a push towards temporary minions, as there kind of is now.
Well, they said there was in the Exile Con. Oh, where am I going? Jesus. Interview is so fascinating. They talked about it at Exile Con, right? They want a Toxic Rain, Detonate Dead, Tornado Shot. False. Those are not classic PoE skills. Those are modern PoE skills. Classic PoE skills. Oh, I guess Detonate Dead. Okay, that's an old one. That's true. Spectral Throw. What's like an old one? Cleave. But these are like traditional ones. Spark. I don't know. Like there's a lot of them that I could see that are old skills. But they're talking about popular skills. I think they're talking about like the identity of Path of Exile 1. Like we all know totems are coming back and brands are kind of like maybe getting the chopping block. Brand skills are popular skills, this league especially. But are they going to get the chopping block? Maybe, because it's not the identity. When you think Path of Exile, you shouldn't be thinking Stormbrand, you know?
Now in PoE 1, like
also,
the
yeah,
scaling
temporary
from
minions.
passive minions has kind of fallen off over the years in recent patches. And
I think what Jonathan is going to say, if I were Jonathan, how would I respond to this? Well, you see, Crip, we value... Well, not sorry. I'm going to talk like I'm sorry. Well, you see, Crip, in Path of Exile 2 and over the course of many years, the initial problem we had is that summoners just kind of stood there and let their minions did everything as they just ran around and dodged everything. And we want to avoid that kind of gameplay. You can have permanent minions, but if you summon them recently, you get some sort of buff. Like the wolf skill from the druid gives you a critical strike chance, you know, if you've summoned one recently. So the idea is you maybe have some amount of permanent minions and like 1, 2, or 3 that you summon regularly to keep up the buff to give you some active gameplay. I think that's what Jonathan's going to say.
the scaling for temporary minions has actually increased over that same time span.
I have a lot of ideas around minions, and we're going to be talking about that when we announce the witch stuff later, I guess next year, technically still. So there's going to be a big discussion about that, and we've got a lot of features there. We put a lot of thought into minions. It's obviously one of those things that action RPG people, you know, like there are a certain class of people who play action RPGs who that's all they want to play.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure that we've got a really, really good minion story, as it were. Yeah, because of that, minions are going to get a lot of attention, and you'll see that fairly soon, I think.
Now, one thing with minions that kind of comes as a drawback in PoE 1
He didn't answer the question, by the way.
Visual clarity, where once I have more of a powerful summoner and I'm summoning more minions and they have like more AoE in their attacks, I feel like the visual clarity of just me being able to see the boss mechanics kind of starts going down and down. In PoE 1, they has this like setting which is like bloom. But that affects both things. It affects both the boss mechanics in some cases as well as like your skills and the minion skills. So there's no like great way to kind of maintain full clarity of the boss mechanics. But I am stronger, so I don't know. It's kind of been a trade-off in PoE 1. Is there some address to this in PoE 2?
There isn't like a specific technical, like here's the specific solution, but I can tell you that visual clarity of minions is like the primary concern that I have around minions for sure when looking at this stuff. because that is how there is a certain feeling you want with minions where you kind of like in PoE 1 it just feels like chaos a lot of the time. Like there's just shit everywhere. Like it doesn't feel like there's a front line, as it were, and things like there's these kinds of issues. I want to try and make it feel a bit different in PoE 2. So
I have to talk to Sin here. I don't even know.
Like stuff around this, and even if you looked at the whiteboard in my office right now, like half the issues on there are visual clarity to do with minion issues right now. So yeah, it's definitely a concern. It's just a matter of like just better design.
When I play minions, if I play Absolution minions, do I ever have issues with visual clarity? I'm trying to remember when we played Absolution. I don't remember ever feeling like I don't know where I am, because the benefit of Path of Exile 2, something by the way that Diablo 4 fails at, and I am legitimately shocked this is never talked about more. No matter what's happening on the screen, anything going on, no matter how you move, no matter which boss you're fighting, 99.9% of the time, your character will always be in the same spot on the screen. You know, it doesn't matter what's going on, how you move, where you're going, what boss you're fighting. Your character will always be on the very same spot. And that is super valuable in regards to like how you read the game. Now, when I have minions, that doesn't change. And so like I never feel out of control when I have minions on the field, regardless of what build I play. However, something Diablo 4 fails at is that they do fuck around with the camera. If you're doing global boss fights or certain boss fights, listen, I haven't played the game, but I have seen a lot of videos about it. And let me tell you, it's weird when the character goes off the center of the screen. They just fuck off in the middle of over here or something. And now you have clarity issues. Now you have like animation problems because, well, they say animation problems. What happens is the character's not centered on the camera like PoE always is for the character here. So what happens is you get hit by something and you think, wait, that didn't hit the center of the screen. That's an animation bug, when in reality, the camera was offset and it fucked with you. Yeah, I know where I am, but do I know where the projectile and degen pools are? You do when you hit one and you almost die.
Really, when it comes to what the minions' abilities look like and this kind of stuff. As well as just, there's just a lot of, it's kind of like 1,000 individual subtle things that kind of add together to make things have more clarity. And that's kind of true across PoE 2 in general. Like there's a lot of focus on trying to make sure that there's visual clarity with the skills, even though they look really modern and cool, there's still, clarity. Like, because we're, get the opportunity to have a bit of a reset here graphically, it means that we can consider very carefully, like, what slots around the enemies do different effects go in.
Listen,
and, like,
okay, I know, I see it, okay? I'm dying a lot, I understand, okay? My slash deaths are 40, but you have to understand, I am a gimped character, okay? I know what you're all thinking. It's like, what the fuck is this moron doing? But, like, I am playing on a severe disadvantage right now, okay? I understand that, okay? I get it. But still, all right? Severe disadvantage, all right? So don't give me any shit, all right?
Like we're kind of making sure, okay, like if something's like on like a, and this may actually not be like 100% correct, but it's like if something's on the like blade of the weapon.
Also, if anyone's selling a coruscating elixir for not like 100 chaos, that would be super appreciated. I need one of those, all right? We really can't reserve more than like half of our life to get to low life, and that's about it. Because boy, oh boy, that's gonna be rough. We have Ivory Tower, but we're not gonna be. We're gonna reserve a lot of our mana anyway, so we need coruscating elixir. We're using a unique jewel to transform a keystone into every empty flask slot you have, you generate flask charges or something, and we'll just perma-sustain tri-LE flasks, one of which is coruscating elixir. So we'll just be immune to chaos damage all the time, as long as we have 2 empty flask slots, which is pretty sweet. At least change that armor. Is Act 6 my dude? What? What are you talking about? This armor's sick. This armor's cool. I've earned this armor. All right, we earned it together.
And then that is always a herald effect, for example. Like nothing else is taking that slot on the character, so you kind of know that, like, like these kind of things are kind of what we're trying to do to make sure that everything has its place, and you kind of always can see things without having to have too much overlap. And hopefully, I mean, sure, a little bit of that goes out the door a little bit when you start having MTXs heavily involved, but at least without those, like, the visual clarity should be very good if we're doing our job well.
Okay. So, bit of a subject swap here. In PoE 1, when it comes to designing a character, a lot of it kind of has to do with putting check marks on defensive goals. So the first round of goals is like avoiding lockouts, so you don't get stunned, don't get frozen. And then the second one is usually don't get killed by physical damage, because physical damage is unique.
Oh, you're talking like beyond the basics.
Your ability to stack armor. And the third one is just like, does this character get one shot from typical stuff that happens to it? Is this kind of going to be a similar checklist in
Well, it's part of making a build, you know?
Is it a different approach to defenses?
It's
PoE 2. It's not particularly easy to necessarily avoid that. But what I would say is that I would hope that we don't get to the point where you have to feel like every character needs to be completely immune to certain mechanics. Like ideally, it should be a reasonable choice.
Hold on.
Between, is this something I'm mitigating, or is this something I'm completely...
I don't think there is going to be a single person playing PoE 2 who is not going to get stun immunity. I understand that in PoE 2 beta demo, whatever you want to call it, the ExileCon demo, it was bugged and you got stunned more than you should from small monsters. Holy shit. Fuck, I got stunned a lot from big monsters too, let me tell you. I don't know a single person who's gonna play without stun immunity in PoE 2. Like, every single person is gonna get that immunity. I don't know. Oh, at least change the chest armor. Oh, no, it's fine. We got Ivory Tower coming in 18 levels. That'll be a good upgrade. Yeah, that'll be a pretty sweet upgrade, you know?
Preventing. So that should always feel like it's a choice. But at the same time,
well, let's get the keystone.
Having certain things you need to be able to deal with as part of a build is, like part of the, I guess, the trade-off you're making when it comes to, like, how, like you need a bit of tension to make defense, like, to make it so that you don't just make a complete glass cannon with zero attention to defense at all. You do need to some extent
Breach League!
Have, like, how I'm going to deal with this particular problem. So I think that will still be a thing. But I can't promise that the exact details around it will be the same in PoE 2. This is honestly something that I am not myself as involved with, I would say, as some other people on the team. I mean, obviously, I still kind of like, talk about this stuff.
Fuck this.
People like Rory and Mark tend to be a little bit more, like knowing about, like have specific thoughts around that stuff.
Well, maybe this isn't too apt of a question, but I'll ask it anyway. Will you perhaps eventually be able to trivialize a mechanic entirely? Like, I know the stun mechanic in PoE 2 is much more sophisticated than PoE 1, but are you able to make a character that's completely ignoring stuns of all kinds if you want?
There should always be a way to do that. The cost of it should always be something, right? You know what I mean? So, like, I mean, there's absolutely will be a unique that's going to be like, you can't get stunned, right? There's going to be uniques like
you have no elemental resistances. The thing is I don't know. Not that I don't know. It's more like, are we really going to run the risk of not running like certain defensive layers? Like, that is the fun of making a build in PoE, right? It's like, okay, basic bitch defensive setup. I need elemental resistances. I need mana regen or a way to cast my skills. I need life and life regen. Like, these are very basic things. And then you have the next layer of, okay, I need to be physically defensive. I need more elemental or coverage than just basic resistances, which is like not even a defensive layer. It's just a requirement. And I need enough mana regen to like hold down right click, or I need enough health regen to where like I don't die in like one hit and then like a baby hit, you know? That's like the fun of it though. I don't know. I'm trying to find a different chest here. Should we just use oh wait, no, hold on. Wait. Chat, I have a weird question. Ivory Tower, is the 30 max energy shield per 100 reserved life? Oh fuck, it does have a life mod. Oh shit, I didn't even noticed that. Fucking Chaos damage is taken from mana before life. Life mod. Fuck! I wanted the 15% life. Chat? Damn. Didn't even notice that. I was looking at the 100 reserve life mod. Oh, that's a shame. Fuck. It's all good, chat. It's all good. Yeah, but no resistances are Boolean in maps. True. Let's see. 30% fizz. No, I just want something to like help me survive. Maybe it's, yeah, okay, fine. We'll use the armor ES hybrid. All right, will that make people happier? I'll even blow a scour on it just for you, chat. Gary, no, it's a waste. Ah, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Okay, and then we use an essence on it that has flat life. Is this too high of an item level? No, it's not. Let's do it. 30 int, 40 armor, 80 life, faster ES recharge, flat ES. You know what? Fuck, I have to scour it. Because we didn't use an orb of binding on it. Listen, chat, I don't need your sass today. 30 cold res, strength, life, mana. Okay, I'll take it. Jesus. What are we going to do with it? I was going to craft on it. A suffix, probably fire resistance. And, oh, colors. I need 3 blue, 1 green. There we go, based. Okay, let's go craft on it, and then we'll upgrade our chest. Finally. Oof, that's going to be nice.
Okay.
There may be a keystone that does like that does that in exchange for some kind of big downside.
I do wish they would show more keystones about PoE 2. Dude, when I went to ExileCon, I came out with more questions than answers. Like, I want to see, like, have we seen a new keystone in PoE 2 yet? Like, I don't, like, the passive tree is like the biggest unknown, right? We know about weapon swap stuff, and that's pretty sick, and it's automatic. Okay, all cool things, but like, we don't know what a keystone is in PoE 2. Like, Resolute Technique, it'll exist, I'm sure. I don't know. I don't know, chat. I don't know how comfortable I feel about it. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, you know? What's our energy blade doing? Is this even worth using right now? 7% crit, 1.7 attacks per second, 254 lightning damage on the high end. Okay, well, we'll see if this survivability helps. Significantly better. Resistance is whoop. Not there. We need there.
But there always just has to be a downside in order for that to be able to happen. And then, of course, you know, you should be able to invest in stun reduction to the point where it no longer phases you as well, right? This kind of thing should be possible. So that should always be possible. It's just always like cost benefit, right? Like,
yeah, fair enough.
You know, what are you trading for that?
In terms of character design, I think it's maybe, at least for me, one of the best thing that PoE 1 does, where it always seems difficult to get enough of everything.
Ow.
Like, you can make a character that does millions or even like 1 billion damage, but you can only really do that if you have no defenses. Or you can make a character that's extremely tanky, but the damage ends up being lackluster to a point where you literally have to tank more things.
For sure.
Insert Quinn joke here. Insert Quinn joke here. I'm so funny. Great content creation.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this has actually come up when we were discussing the tree about like things like, okay, so this is another tree philosophy thing. Is like, okay, should it be that the reason that you get a variety of things on the tree is because there just aren't enough nodes for a given thing to be able to do that?
Oh, he's talking about the no life node things. There's
always enough nodes to be able to allocate for a given thing. It's just that you don't want to do that because you've got other concerns that you need to do. And I think it's the second one that's important. Like, if you really want to allocate every single point into, you know, some particular stat that's, you know,
life
freeze reduction or something random like that, then there will be nodes for you to do that. It's just that you don't want to do that because, you know, that's not the only important thing. And I think that's kind of just generally how we look at our philosophy around this.
Crit multi, crit.
All right.
A lot of things you could say there.
People aren't quite aware because, you know, it's one class here, one class there, and we haven't seen a lot of like the trailers for the classes that already exist in PoE 1, which we have at least heard of a little bit that they're being redesigned in some ways. But eventually we're going to have 36 Ascendancy classes in PoE 2. And my first question is, if we have like twice as many Ascendancy classes, Is there going to be a different design in like the lifetime of a character when a new league comes out or a new content update comes out? Like, are you expecting players to play like many characters in each season, or like one or two, kind of how they are in PoE1?
Kind of whatever you prefer,
I think
right?
it would just be like how it is in PoE1, honestly.
Yeah.
The fact that there's a lot of options there, I mean,
God damn it,
is for PoE2 to last a long time, right? So like ideally, you know, like having more classes like that.
Oh my God,
it's going to be a lot.
We're zerging this. All right, chat. Listen, I know there's a wonderful interview right now. I gotta whoop ass here. I'm dying because I'm paying attention to the interview. I'm not paying attention to this. What they're talking about in the interview is this idea that, like, hey, in PoE1, you can choose to focus on one character, or you can have many characters. And it must be the same in PoE2. So I think a better question Crip could have asked here is like, hey, right now, some people in PoE1 love playing one character every league and then min-maxing it so it's absolutely perfect after 3 months. Does PoE2 on the high end of things allow for such a creation, or are we expected to have a full build after a period of time if we really go hard on the game? Or not necessarily that, but like, is there enough room on the high end of builds to actually allow that? Jonathan would obviously say something like, well, that's a goal, but still, you should get that on the record.
Longer before you have run out of stuff to try. So ultimately, that's the reason why there's so many, that we just want to have a lot of stuff that you know to play around with. So yeah, I imagine that in each league it's going to be 1 to 2 characters, just like it is in PoE1.
Mm-hmm. In PoE1, it's taking like dedicated players that are focusing on leveling. I'm not going to say some days, which are like the fastest times, but let's say like a week to hit max level. Is that kind of like a goalpost that you guys are trying to hit in PoE2 as well, in terms of the
I'm sure they would
character?
nerf that shit immediately.
I think it should take a bit longer than a week. I would sort of feel like I'd want to go back a little bit in terms of how long it takes to be more like what it was like sort of 3 to 4 years ago, I would say. You know, where it was a bit longer. But I mean, it'll take people a while just to sort of learn the game, I think. So I suspect the first time people play the content, it's going to take them quite a while. Like, as I was saying before, like, you know, the first time I beat a boss earlier, it was like 5 minutes, and then like that went down on my second time to like 2 minutes. So even just from that perspective, like, you know, and it slowly improves. So I think that people will get faster and faster. So I mean, I honestly don't know at this point how long it will take people the first time through the campaign, and I suspect it will take them a very long time. But yeah, it'll get faster. Like,
what is a very long time?
What am I getting?
Honestly, I honestly don't know for sure, because we don't have like the entire, like, not every area is like.
Oh shit, Gary's you're never gonna see a pinnacle in PoE2.
I mean, all the areas are there,
False.
but they're not playable in the sense that like if you have bad monsters, like when I say bad, I mean like monsters that don't have like all their abilities and stuff like that in an area, it's just boring. So like nobody wants to play those areas. So that means that we don't really have like proper progression testing. Like, we've polished the first half of each act kind of thing. And so we haven't got like a sort of full, like, you can just play through the whole game to do progression testing yet. So that means that I can't actually say how long it will take, but I honestly believe that like for an average player, I mean, like, it's got to be at least 40, 50 hours, I think.
Jesus.
I imagine that's how long it will take sort of your average player to get through. Like, it could be longer, honestly, for people who like
the campaign
before, probably. So that kind of things. I mean, I guess that's kind of like half an hour per zone when you include, like, you know, fighting bosses. Like, I sort of want people to die like 1 to 2 times on each boss the first time they play it, because they haven't learned the mechanics yet. Like, it should feel that way when you're kind of playing through the first time.
Wow. 40 hours for a casual playthrough? There's only 7 acts. Right? 6 or 7 acts. It's not more than 8. I know that. 7 acts, 40 hours. Every zone takes a while, and every boss you're expected to die 1 to 2 times to. Or he would like to see you die 1 to 2 times because you're a casual player. When a casual players play PoE1, how long does the campaign take them? Act 1 to 10. Right? Like, I play the campaign pretty casually, and I know where to go, and I can get it done in like 8 hours, you know? If you try any amount, you could easily get it down to like 4 hours, you know? If you make any attempt to like know the game. Is a casual player gonna take 40 hours to beat the PoE 1 campaign? No shot, right?
And so that will mean, you know, like that kind of thing. So like it's just a little bit harder, like, you know, but the thing is, I think PoE 1 may even be that hard for people who just play the game for the first time now.
Oh God!
Once you played it, you know, how many times people have played it, it becomes trivial to the point where you're like, okay, I could never die to this thing. But because of the fact that you actually, you know, you have to restart the boss if you die to it now, it will force you to actually learn the mechanics and kind of, you know, work out these things during the first,
true. You're gonna learn it.
That'll be interesting. But yeah, it'll take people a while.
All right. Well, that is it for the questions that I had personally, but I have scoured the internet for unanswered questions, and I have picked a few up from chat. And if you guys want to post your question in chat, if it's at least
too late for me.
enough from what we've already discussed or what I have, I'll maybe try to include it.
What question do I want answered in this interview right now? What do I want answered? Is there anything about PoE 2? For me, it's more of there's a lot of unknowns about the game in terms of build creativity. Do you have any example? Well, no, I don't. He's never going to release content, right? He's not going to like reveal anything without like a full thing. They still got to do the hype cycle. I don't know. I'd have to think about like what questions I would ask.
But yeah, we you know, people do have to be in places
roughly 30-ish, huh?
So we don't have Jonathan forever. But yes, with that in mind, I wanted to ask some of the questions. They might be a little bit less researched than some of my own, so might brace yourself for some short answers, but that's okay, hopefully. So here we go. I found this one on a YouTube comment, I believe. Oh no, I think it was on the official thread of this interview on the PoE forums. So tell us about the die system you mentioned in 2019. I don't know anything about this, so please.
Yeah, I guess I probably mentioned that back in ExileCon back in 2019. It's something that we could still do, but it's not honestly something that I've kind of thought about for a little while. I know it's something that a lot of players are very keen for, but like it's kind of not really on my radar at this point. Like we're just focusing on content really. But there's nothing really preventing us from doing it. It would just be a matter of marking up all the armors and, you know, the parts that get modified and so on. So it's just a bunch of work there. But yeah, it can be done. I don't know if really it would be there at release. It's kind of,
I don't even know what to get right now.
That would be disappointing for a lot of players, but it's just kind of one of those things that has kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit as we've been grinding out.
I know we're gonna need this.
A bunch more content, unfortunately.
All right. So 99% of PoE 2 misgivings have been about the gameplay pace. Now, you've kind of adjusted this a little bit, but I kind of want to ask it again and ask you how is it current relative...
Can I need Alva in PoE 2? You need Alva when you fight the zombie toucan.
To maybe what we've seen a few months ago at ExileCon, is that still kind of what we're expecting? Or is that, as you mentioned, a bit slowed down so people can kind of see the clarity a little bit?
So I guess I kind of don't really... Like, okay, so a lot of people are like, oh, you know, you're slowing it down to do this, or you're kind of, you know, like, they have a lot of things like that. But I think really when it comes to when we're like... So, this actually relates to a little bit what I was saying before about how we haven't been able to do full progression testing yet.
Okay.
Which is that what that means is that when we're balancing an area to do a demonstration or for ExileCon, the demos and all that sort of stuff, we kind of just like, we make a character that's about what we think it should be for this area, and then we kind of balance the monsters from that point for the demo to just kind of hit like what we want, where we expect to sort of be able to understand the mechanics and kind of
okay,
like give a good showing
not good.
How the class should be. I think at ExileCon, it probably was balanced a little hard. But the thing is, each demo is kind of its own thing because of the fact that, yeah, like as I said, we don't have a full like sort of progression test through the whole game yet. So ExileCon, like because of these demos are just like how they are. Effectively, what it is just like me and Mark will play it, and then we'll be like, did we?
Okay, I'm gonna bite back a little bit to Jonathan here. I don't think that's actually what happened. Because I distinctly remember Chris Wilson saying before we actually started and opened the con, right at the end of the opening presentation, it's like, okay, when you go in, read the signs. It's going to be really, really hard is the way he said hard. It's really, really hard, right? It's hard. Read the signs. Make sure you pay attention and just go in. And like, it's just, you know, they tuned it. That's the way it came across. That's the way it was sold to me as an audience member at ExileCon, was that it's really hard. The monk was my favorite in the demo, because the warrior was not what you think it should have been for that area. Don't lie to us. Yeah, fair. They may have tuned that a little hard. Yes, he still has to finish his answer too. But the monk felt the best, but it still was like behind, right? The monk was like, you wash up on the beach and you start the game. And I could actually kill monsters reasonably fast. And then I hit the first boss, and that was pretty hard, but I did it in one shot. Then I ran into this fucking witch with like 2 wolfhound things, so she kept resummoning, and that bitch was so goddamn hard. She dropped, her drop was a permanent, what was it? Permanent like 5% cold resistance or something. She was so difficult, and it whooped my ass, and that was like a level like 3 monk. So is that what it's supposed to be? Because there's going to be a lot of people who struggle against that.
Get through it too quickly, or didn't we? And then adjust accordingly. So we just adjust it until it feels fun to us. So I think when people maybe sort of ascribe a little bit too much to that sometimes. Mm-hmm. That being said, I think that it's probably best to look at the pacing stuff to be more like when we were discussing earlier with maps and what the median player versus the 1% players would be doing. I think we still want to make sure that there's still a 10 times disparity in efficiency between a good and a bad player in that situation. So that would certainly imply that there can be certainly a pretty good amount of pace you can get up to. But what I do think is also bad, and I guess this is another philosophical thing, is that I don't think it's really good when you someone opens up Path of Exile on Twitch. They look at what the game looks like at the absolute 1% end of it, and it just looks like utter, just like what is even going on the screen. You know, it's just like shit is everywhere. There's like there's no visual clarity. I cannot tell what the hell is going on, and the boss melts. And like
that's when the game is at its best, boy.
So you do need to be able to get a lot more efficiency than the average player, but we do have to be a little bit careful. But I don't know, like I guess all of that is to say that like it's a little bit hard to say exactly what the pace will be like in maps at this point. I have no doubt that the peak will still be high, but it may not be as high as it currently is in PoE 1. I think that's very likely. But at the same time,
I don't really know what that means, but okay.
People feel like they're able to break the game. Like you want people to feel like, oh, I'm breaking the game right now. I'm like got an insane amount of projectiles, like way more than I should be able to have, like all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I guess there's a bit of a hedged non-answer, which I worry is a bit of a problem here.
Well, it's still in development. I can't fault you for that.
Yeah, that's not. That's not going to be a popular answer.
You know, kind of seeing post-Ruthless Experiment what your thoughts may be on the matter.
And you're definitely right that it's the #1 issue that people talk about PoE 2. Like the fear in the PoE 1 community is that it's just going to be super slow paced.
Yeah.
And I don't think it will feel that way. I think that when you play it, you will have fun. Ultimately, that's all that I'm after, right? Like, so it's actually interesting because there's been cases of this, right? Where like I was playing the mercenary.
So he's going to continue the answer here. That's what I'm worried about. It's like as I'm looking at PoE 2, are we in a situation where he says the ceiling is going to be lower, and he's saying it in like the most fragile way possible, which tells me, okay, it's going to be like not insignificantly slower in the very high end. Like I remember in the PoE 2 subreddit, they were talking about Flicker Strike and like, how fast do you expect Flicker Strike to be? Their version of breaking the game in PoE 2 is sustaining Flicker Strike. If that's breaking the game, I don't know, dude. We might have like a forum fucking disaster in PoE 2, man. I've been burned by a lot of video games that advertise only a certain amount, and then people kind of make up in their head what the game is going to be, and then it doesn't meet those expectations. They keep saying break the game. Yeah, it's cool to have 1 million projectiles, but if the 1 million projectiles don't melt bosses instantly, there's no point. You might as well not have unlimited projectiles. You aren't actually breaking the game. You just have a shit ton of projectiles for like memes, you know? I don't know. It's one of those things that's like, yeah, it is my concern as well. My girlfriend thinks I'm some sort of genius for being able to parse what's on screen. Little does she know, I have no idea what's happening. Based.
In the demo for the demo that we recorded, and then I went back and I played. What was I was playing? I think it might have been the warrior actually.
Naming a new character, of course.
The demo character we had at XLCon, I was like, man, this is way too slow.
Yeah.
Even just from me, like it can often be the case that my opinions change as I'm playing as I'm playing things. This is really going to come down to the progression testing to kind of see how we feel.
I would hope it's too slow.
I guess the main the guiding star, I suppose, at the end of the day has to be that when you get an item, you feel like it improved your character. Because if you don't have that, then you have nothing. You still have to maintain that feeling through the whole game, and there has to be a feeling of progress as you go through. So,
okay, the more Jonathan talks about this, the more I think that PoE 2 really is going to be like significantly slower than the current game. Like, it's going to be so slow, I think, after hearing this especially, I think it's going to be the kind of game where you can't make the mistake of thinking you're going to go in with like a Flicker Strike build. Like, you're going to go in and you're going to play a build that summons 2 totems to boost your melee damage as you like armor break, what's the meme? Armor break, fucking leap slam in, just omega hit. Is that a build? Would I want to play that ever? I don't know. I wouldn't. I don't know, chat. Like, after this, now I'm more worried about PoE 2. I wonder what the subreddit's opinion is. Hold on, this is kind of cool. Let's look up the current. I know the interview is still going when we paused it, but I kind of want to take a second to read the internet's opinion on this, because I wonder how Reddit's reacting, because I don't think it's gonna be very good just based on what I've heard so far. He said, what? Excuse me? He said, I don't think it'll feel that slow. He didn't say it won't feel that slow. He said the ceiling was gonna be lower, and wait, what? GGG post on the Magic Find post. Hold on. We have temporarily disabled the additional monster projectiles modifier in private leagues and will not be available upon creating new ones. It will stop working in all existing. Oh. +2 projectile private leagues. Get fucked. Okay, sweet. Where's the what? Path of Exile 2. Where's the actual? Hello? Is nobody talking about this? What does nobody give a shit? New. The interview started, what, 2 hours ago? Wow. Nobody's talking about this? Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, like that's we'll I guess, end up where we end up, where it honestly, and it may sound a bit silly, but it's like, it just has to feel fun to me, right? Like, I have to play it and feel like this feels fun.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't feel fun to me, then I'll increase the numbers. And that's really what it comes down to.
They're so scared about giving people too much power early.
How much of an endgame map is the boss in it, I suppose? You've kind of answered this slightly through your mastery of, repeatedly going up against these bosses and just defeating them faster and faster. But I guess we can broadly ask you, perhaps...
Fucking catch them, Jesus.
How much of a map that you do in the endgame of PoE 2 should the boss be?
Yeah, so I think that in terms of drops, at the very least, so we've actually discussed the drops in particular. I think that 1/3 of the map should be boss drops.
1/3.
1/3 of the map should just be regular monsters, and 1/3 of the map should be other events and things that come up, like league content and things like that. Which isn't to say necessarily that every map will always have stuff like that, but on average across many maps, it should be about 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Ideally, that should roughly map onto the amount of time that you spend doing those things as well. So that's kind of my view on it, at least. Is roughly 1/3, I would say, should be the map boss.
Roughly 1/3.
I don't know if you're fully comfortable answering this one, but inquiring minds are curious. Why did you guys decide to continue working on 1 and 2 at the same time, like separately, rather than evolving?
They saw the response to Ruthless.
PoE 2? I know it was like a big announcement that it's going to be its own project, but I guess people really didn't get the why.
They heard the response from Ruthless. That's what happened.
So it really comes down to, we want to be able to make whatever changes we want to make without it becoming a problem for the existing community. And when we first announced in 2019 what we were planning on doing, I don't think we appreciated at the time the degree to which the changes would actually change the game. And so it really just came down to, like, you know, we had people in the office who were like, I'm really worried that the game, you know, like I'm talking about like people in the QA team and things like that, they were just really worried, you know, I'm worried that the game that you make won't necessarily be the Path of Exile that I like, right? I mean, they still look at what we're doing and, you know, they like what we're doing. But there was some worry there.
Oh, they're scared,
so when I heard that, I kind of thought about it like pretty hard for a while. I talked to Mark quite a bit about it, and we kind of said, you know, we really just wanted to be free to be able to let the games diverge without having to constantly work. Because I worried that the decisions that we wanted to make for PoE, like I didn't want PoE 1 to hold PoE 2 back as far as like having to make balanced decisions. Like we didn't want to have things like where we're like, oh, you know, we can't change this because then all these players will get angry or things like that. We wanted to be kind of free to be able to just...
You know, I don't know if Jonathan's doing the best job actually selling this game to me. Like, don't get me wrong, okay? I like Path of Exile. Fucking flew to New Zealand for it, as you guys heard a billion times on my stream, okay? Talk about it all the time. I'm now more worried than ever that this game is gonna be, like, very not what I expect. We don't want a WoW versus WoW Classic situation. Well, I think it's different. I think we just don't want a, gosh, is it even that? I don't even think that's the case. I think what happened, because Jonathan, his job is to sell the game right now. So he put the QA, like, story into the best light as possible for grinding gear games, okay? This is his version of it, okay? What I think happened was that they had a QA testing for PoE 2 from people who really know the game of Path of Exile 1. It could have been content creators. It could have been people who do the fucking alpha testing whatever, right? They tested it. It seemed like the general response was pretty lukewarm, where it's like, okay, this is cool, but, you know, it sounds like you're just getting rid of a lot of what I like in a game. And so they compromised and opened up the original game to kind of develop on its own. I almost wonder if it's the healthiest way to engage with Path of Exile 2 is to come in and consider it like an isometric, like, Souls game, where it's just like Dark Souls, but isometric. I wonder if that's the best way to approach PoE 2. Because if that's the case, now it makes more sense, where it's like, it's slow, it's methodical, you're dodge rolling everything, you're going from boss to boss, and these bosses are going to kill you a few times unless you're like way over geared for it. And in that regard, I think it would be hated, but we'll see. I don't know.
Like, make whatever changes we wanted to make. And I think the PoE 1 compatibility idea was just sort of starting to become a thing where, like, oh, we can't change this because it would, you know, break this or break that or whatever it was. So that's really the reason. And once we decided that, I think we started to get a lot more crazy with the kind of changes that we were doing. So things like WASD, I don't think would have happened under the old model. I don't think we would have been able to accept that kind of thing, just because the mode we were thinking about was much too much a kind of like, you know, we're extending the game rather than making a new game. I think it was not enough in that direction.
Okay.
So yeah, it really just comes down to that. And as for why we want to continue supporting PoE 1, well, I mean, you know, like, it's still a great game. It's just a bit of a different game.
Because if you put all your eggs in one basket, the basket might burn.
A lot of people still enjoy it. Yeah, like, I see no reason why we can't do both.
All right, that's excellent. I had a question. People were wondering about hideouts. The question they had was, Are you going to have bigger or more in-depth hideouts than PoE 1? But I guess the base question is, are we even going to have hideouts at all?
You must. You sell MTX for it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Mechanically, I don't think they'll probably change too much. Maybe there's probably more we can do to make them a bit more interesting. But
they can't get rid of hideouts because they sell MTX for it. You have to allow it. It's harder to maintain, but that's another problem. Listen, they got one guy doing the trade website. I don't think it's going to be as hard as you think, especially, well, if you think about it, if they are allowed to take all of the art assets from Path of Exile 2 and just use them in a league in Path of Exile 1, and all you need is like just developers to implement it into the game, if that's the case and all they're doing is just changing numbers or like taking and tweaking skills from PoE 2, if that's the situation, you don't need that much to maintain it. You know, the server infrastructure is already there because of the sequel, right? If all you're doing is borrowing art assets and shit and making like a whole new PoE 1 experience for that league, I don't think it's going to be as hard as to maintain as you think it is.
I still really like the the whole freeform placement and decorating and all that sort of stuff. Like I want to keep all of that. It should work the same way. And also the PoE 1 microtransaction hideouts. I want to still be there in PoE 2. You can still use them and just have that as your hideout.
That's the real reason.
So yeah, like that should all come across.
A question was about losing experience on death.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty interesting because right now in PoE 1, some people like it, some people don't like it.
Yeah, we don't know this, right? If you lose the XP on death.
The landscape for it is like, if you run up against the boss where you die, you just look up how to beat the boss, or you look up a build that can beat the boss. But with none of that existing in PoE 2, I feel like the death penalty, if it was the same, would feel a bit overbearing in some cases.
Yeah. So in campaign, there's no XP penalty in PoE 2.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's because you're expected to die to the bosses. And,
okay, good.
It's like the declaration of I want you to be dying one to two times for each campaign boss for the first time kind of implies, well, we can't have an XP penalty then. And also, in PoE 1, that was the only penalty that actually was anything because of the fact that you could just go resume the boss from where you left off. Whereas now the penalty is that
the boss resets.
You have to start the boss again. That's enough of a penalty in itself. So that's fine. We don't need the X penalty anymore. But the one question is,
I want to make a joke and I can't because I'm fighting this stupid totem.
I don't necessarily think that the X penalty is that important in early end game. But I think in late end game it actually is very important.
Oh my god. Please just get me out of this zone. Oh, I hate this.
To make it challenging to get to level 100. You need to have something that's kind of going to make it effectively a build check, as it were, to make sure that you actually have.
Okay, I can make my joke now. Oh god. Okay, I can make my joke now. You ready? You know what? We should drop like all of our currency that we have in our inventory until like we go back to get our body, and then we get all of our currency back. But if we die again on the way there, we permanently lose all of the currency that we dropped, because get fucked if you have a bunch of souls. I mean, sorry, chaos orbs in your inventory.
And so the X penalty is what makes that allowed to happen. So we definitely need to have an X penalty towards the very end of the game. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to be doing to sort of kick that in exactly yet. But there'll be some kind of kick in of X penalty towards the later end game to sort of make it so that you still have to actually have a survivable build to get to level 100.
Okay.
The next question I have.
New end game for tiny rogues is tough. Very.
I do know there's a bit more to it, so I'll add on it a little bit. So the question was, how do we interact with flasks, and how many flask slots do we have? I know it's been announced that the flasks kind of will not recover from normal monsters and will be
only from magic. Oh, fuck me.
So do you have maybe a bit more to add about that?
So basically, the philosophy there. So just to talk a little bit about why we did that. So to have it so that only blues and above monsters will actually recover life flasks, because there wasn't enough state in Path of Exile 1, in my opinion, with regard to your character. And what I mean by that is, and this actually, which one was it? I'm talking about Final Fantasy 13, I think it was.
What?
Was that
For what?
I think it was Final Fantasy 13, which is a game I hated.
Run down the hallway simulator
was because your character, you effectively every time, every time you finished a battle in that game, your character was reset to full life. What that meant was is that there were really no resources. Like there was no feeling of like if you fight a group of 5 monsters and you fight.
That's the problem you have with that game? Because that game had a lot of issues, namely with the moment-to-moment gameplay of running down the hallway. The fact that you filter highlights 3 chromatics just triggers me irrationally. Your filter highlights 3 chromatics? Why not? Listen, I'm of the belief, chat, that if something drops on the ground in this game, I pick it up, okay? That's my filter, all right? I don't want to have to fucking drop it, read it, I don't want that, and just leave it on the ground, okay? Fuck that, all right? If I see 3 chromes, I'm gonna pick that shit up. I eat chromes like fucking candy, chat. That's gonna be me this league, all right? Keeping in mind, I need 3 green, 3 blues on this fucking red-blue armor, okay? We gotta, like, fucking color a lot of shit, especially yeah, there's gonna be a lot of shit we have to color. But yeah, it's I like chromes, so that's why I do that. I'm too lazy to update my filter, so I'm seeing those chromes too.
The same group of 5 monsters again. It's literally always exactly the same fight because there's no resource that carries on between the fights, and that was a thing that made me really dislike that game because it just felt very grindy because there was no sort of feeling of tension of like getting like in previous games in that series there was this feeling of like you leave town, you kind of have this like your health is kind of slowly decreasing as you sort of go through the game.
What?
And
Jonathan, how are you playing these Final Fantasies? Final Fantasy VII, you don't waste your time fighting random monsters. You run away from that shit, okay? That's what you do. That's how you play that game. You just run away. I can't remember the last time I killed like a regular mob in Final Fantasy VII, okay? Fuck your EXP, use your items, fucking crush the game. It's an easy as shit game. I'm surprised that he would say that. Like, Final Fantasy is not a good example here because there's so much innate healing in that game, You have tense galore, baby. Wouldn't a better example be something like Chrono Trigger? Gary the Capture, thank you. Wouldn't a better example be something like Chrono Trigger? Because I feel like that's a good example of a video game. Chat, I'm gonna be honest, I don't think I've ever I think I played like the beginning of Chrono Trigger and that's it. My friend, however, loved Chrono Trigger, and he showed me the game, and I know that it is difficult because you have so little healing. I think, if I'm thinking of the right game, it's either that or Secret of Mana. I can't remember which one's which, but I think in Chrono Trigger you have like limited healing, and it kind of makes the game difficult in its own regard, 2,000 health, Act 8, not based, or Act 6, I guess. Fuck, we're still in Act 6.
You run out of resources and you have to go back. And while I
campaign
don't
filter
necessarily want it to be that you're always going to run out of flask charges in PoE 2, that is not the case. I do want it to be.
It is what I played.
It isn't just that you're always on full flask charges, because the flasks have to kind of on some level, the flasks are really your health bar. You can recover your life in PoE very, very quickly. And so it's really your flask state that is kind of the main state of your character.
Okay.
And so, like that is something that I kind of want to make still be the case. Now, there's going to be things like Leech and so on that's going to allow you to solve those problems that not, without necessarily using flasks. And then, of course, towards the end game, you're going to be replacing some of your flasks with other things and so on. But I do think that it is important.
I'm just glad we're past the era of every YouTuber talking about Chrono Trigger and other SNES era RPGs. Hey, do you guys see that Angry Video Game Nerd that came out like 3 days ago where he talked about Final Fantasy VI? Where he talks about an entire playthrough of the Super Nintendo Final Fantasy 3/6? That was a thing. That's a thing that just came out. I don't know. I mean, it used to be Ocarina of Time until Ego Raptor Aaron Hansen put out that video, and then all of a sudden everybody stopped talking about Ocarina of Time as the greatest video game ever played. Ain't that convenient? Where the fuck am I going? Wait, I'm so confused. Is it... Oh, God. Chat, campaign takes too long. Why am I playing a Blading Salvo character? Oh, God. Chat, we only need... What level can I equip this shit? 63? 63, and then every level after that, we are going to get just ramping damage, okay? 11 levels, baby.
you don't just feel like every time I kill a pack, I get all of my life flasks.
Law Boss? I haven't played Law Boss yet.
As for guard flasks and things like that, flasks are a nice like resource limiting mechanic that we can use for things where we don't want to have a cooldown. But we
How
do wanna
much?
have something to use on occasion.
Sorry, I keep pausing. How much law do you need to fight the Law Boss? Is it +5?
And I think the tension.
Tiny
between
Rogues is
life,
sick. Yeah, it is pretty fun. I like it.
What other resource that you
Why
have
we played it?
is pretty good. But at the same time, we don't want to kind of be flask piano where you're just like constantly, constantly using them. So ideally, they kind of get to a point where you use them in the right circumstance, you don't use them otherwise, and there's some interesting tension there. And they can serve as a nice resource mechanic that all players have access to that you can kind of choose.
There must be an ascendancy that focuses on flasks, though.
Hopefully that kind of gives you some idea, unless you've got any other questions about any of that, that sort of like kind of basic philosophy around flasks.
Personally, no. I'm kind of curious to see what you guys come up with in the final design of it. I think it's one of those things where there's so many factors that come together to like a feel-good flask system. That's really difficult for me to say I like it because of A, right?
I think it's 4. I've beaten Hell and Law twice, but only did Heavy Mini Boss. Oh.
I will say that not having charges come from normal.
I don't know what that is.
Instant game feel upgrade, in my opinion. Like when we made that change, and surprisingly, we didn't. Like I thought we would have to buff the amount of flask charges that monsters gave, the ones that do give charges in response to that, and then we just didn't, and it seemed to be fine. So. That might not be entirely accurate, but yeah, it didn't take much to actually make that change work well, as it turned out.
Okay.
The biggest issue actually was just really early game before you have
like Act 4,
very many blue and yellow monsters, because you weren't getting enough charges there. So that's when we made it so that checkpoints give you charges, and that kind of resolved the issue. Plus a bit of tweaking about early game flask, like the pool size and a few other details like that, and we kind of managed to get it to feel pretty good, I think.
All right. So a question here is about like casual group play. It said that other ARPGs in the genre generally do it pretty well, but in PoE it felt punishing to play with another person. Is the question that I found online. So I'm kind of curious if PoE 2 will kind of address kind of like casual play with other people in ways that PoE 1 doesn't, perhaps.
Well, there is
nothing off the top of my head.
Things we have going on there, but I don't really want to announce any of that right now, unfortunately. But I'm curious to know what the punishing thing is actually referring to with that, because I don't know that I feel like I am aware of that. I've been
SSF for like 4 years personally, so yes, I don't have much input on this either.
Maybe I'm just terribly missing.
What? I'm already caught up. Oh, geez, Crip. Oh, no. Poor timing. Hold on. Oh, gosh. Sorry, I'll refresh. Man, Twitch VODs are just the worst. Dude, how do we not have a, TiVo system on Twitch? You would think in 2023. Oh, I gotta refresh and then go back.
I guess I'm not aware of the pun.
Imagine adding like 20 characters, 3 endgame areas, new bosses, etc., and not charging for DLC. Yeah. I should play more Tiny Rogues. I currently have, how many classes do I have? I think I have like 12 total right now, so I have a ton of classes to unlock, like a lot of classes to unlock. I'm just not good enough at the game where I can beat it every time. I really struggle with melee characters specifically. I don't really know how to do strength runs really well.
Being punishing to play with another person particularly. I mean, sure, the life increases, but you've got more people.
Spell bows are easy.
I guess I don't know what that's referring to. So
okay.
Yeah.
Wrong screen. I have a question about a character preview with MTX being ported over and its own MTX. Path of Exile 1, you just kind of have to impractically zoom on your character to fully appreciate it.
This is something that we intend to address, and you should note that because the MTX store is the same in PoE 1 and 2, that any changes we do make to the MTX store will be in PoE 1 as well.
Oh, there's got to be a preview, isn't there?
So, yeah, it's something that I definitely hear. We would like to have MTX preview. We are working on it.
Not implemented, gotcha.
We'll hopefully get there before too long. Because, yes, I agree, it's something that we really should have. But I will note that while it's easy for certain things, it is quite hard for others, especially with the complexity around the MTXs these days. So yeah, there's quite a lot of work to do there, but we are intending to do that work. So I'm hoping we'll be able to get that one before too long.
All right. Now, this question doesn't have quite that much meaning to me, but when I opened up the floor to Twitch chat to ask their questions, the one that was spammed like crazy was
Gold?
cross-save / cross-platform play ? So maybe you can do them a favor and
So no, because consoles.
I really do want to talk about this.
Yeah,
but
you can.
our
Consoles have a
console
different
stuff,
release
we kinda
date.
haven't really talked about this yet. But suffice to say, PoE 2 will be a much better experience on console than PoE 1 was, and take that answer for what you will. But we're going to be talking a lot more about those details before too long, where we talk about what we've got going on on console.
With console play being part of the mindfulness of the project, let's say, what might people expect for hardware requirements? Are the ones listed on the Steam page still about right?
God, please do not enable RTX by default.
Steam Path of Exile 2, the Path of Exile 2 Steam page, which you can go to and wishlist, by the way. Just to quickly plug that. I should be correct. So I
just gone Dex in.
This one is like a 960 is the lowest. That's NVIDIA 960 is the lowest spec. And that probably won't be like the most amazing experience ever on that card, but I believe that's what we have as our sort of minimum requirement there.
All right. What is your stance on builds that require 10 plus uniques to function? And for the example they gave is the Golemancer. So I guess we're in...
Fuck Golemancer. You want to know a build that takes a lot of uniques to function? Let me show you one. The one I'm playing right now, all right? This is an Energy Blade build. Hold on, let me get to the next zone so I can show you what an Energy Blade is. Let me show you what happens if you have 10 plus uniques. And whatever Jonathan's about to say, it directly affects this build, all right? So we use hold on, I'm gonna fuck this mob up. So we use something called an Energy Blade, which is this little thing here. So boom, and then boom, woo, giant Energy Blade, cool MTX and Spectral Throw. So you have this, right? That's the weapon. I personally consider this a unique weapon, right? It operates like a unique. It has limitations like a unique. It is a unique weapon as far as I am concerned, okay? It's cool, right? Actually, can you guys see my inventory in this? Oh, you can't. Okay, well, you get to see my build then. Okay, well, this is like the preview of the build that you're going to see tomorrow because I'm not streaming this until everything is equipped. So, tomorrow you'll see me equip a lot of this. I consider this a unique weapon. Okay, cool. It scales elemental damage based on your maximum energy shield. I'm expecting to get, before Energy Blade, at least 15,000 energy shield. And then there are some people who like pour unlimited currency into it and use Cyclone, but we'll talk about that in a second, who get upwards of like 40,000. This reduces it by half. We're going to have like 7-ish thousand, 6-ish thousand ES after energy shield, at least, hopefully like 7,500. And that'll be great. Okay, awesome, right? Energy Blade, I think qualityed as well, also has, what is Energy Blade's quality? I think quality gives, more energy shield maximum. So it's really like 55%. Anyway, we have Energy Blade. Cool. Other unique. How are we going to get a lot of ES? Well, there's two things we're doing, right? So on the passive tree, under Inquisitor, we have Righteous Providence, which gives us increased critical strike chance per point of strength or intellect, whichever is lower. And then you get 50 of each, which is a lot. That's pretty awesome, right? So we're strength and int stacking both. So we're using Shaper's Touch, which is like a very good item if you're stacking two different attributes. So with intelligence, I get A, accuracy rating. We're cast on crit build and we use an attack. So that's where we're getting our accuracy rating. So if we get our target of 1,000 intelligence, 1,000 strength, this one item will give 2,000 flat accuracy, 250 flat mana, 100% increased energy shield. Globally, I believe the 1% increased energy shield, I think that's global. So 100% increased energy shield. We're getting 200% increased evasion rating, and that's it. But it's just a really good The trickster version of this is insane. Yes, but it's different. I like consecrated ground. So, now this isn't everything, but we'll talk about the unique we are missing. There is one unique we're missing, but we'll go over that in a second. Now, what else are we going to do with that? Well, we're going to use Ivory Tower, which I would consider to be mandatory before you play an Energy Blade build. Obviously, you could do goofy shit like Ghost Wraith. I think this is just mandatory for any Energy Blade build that's serious. You know, it's like built for the item. This is our unique chest. You get 30 max energy shield per 100 reserved life, which means we like quadruple dip on where we get our energy shield. So if we have, say, I don't know, because we're strength stacking, 8 to 9,000, well, no, it wouldn't be that high, 6,000 life at least. We get 6,000 life, then we reserve almost all of it except for like 30 life or something stupid. All of that gets converted to ES at a rate of like 3-ish to 1, 3.3 per 1 life, or sorry, 3.3 life per 1 ES benefit. Anyway, we reserve a bunch of life, we get a bunch of ES, and chaos damage is taken from mana, which is absolutely useless for this build. We're reserving all mana and all life. The reason we live is because of a unique that I don't have yet. It's called Coruscating Elixir. Basically, you don't take chaos damage while the flask is active. Now, we are going to have perma flask uptime, but we're going to be using a unique jewel I don't have that costs, I don't know, 90 chaos, 100 chaos. Anyway, it gives you access to a keystone that gives you 4 flasks charges every second, I think. Every 2 seconds. It gives you like 4 flask charges every 2 seconds for every empty flask you have, something like that. So we're going to only carry 3 flasks, Coruscating Elixir, which is a fire flask, a lightning flask, and a cold flask, all of which gives us permanent uptime on all of them. So we have like a pseudo mage blood situation going on, but for defenses. And that's going to be where we get a lot of our elemental resistances from, because we're using a lot of uniques and we are not spell suppressing shit. So it's a nice stopgap. Anyway, that's how we're going to get rid of chaos damage, is by having perma uptime Coruscating Elixir, because we're not going to have an unreserved thing and we're doing an ES build. What else are we using? We're using Wrath Pits. We are reserving almost all of our life, so the sacrifice 10 life is useless per trigger spell. Yeah, that's absolutely useless. Doesn't affect us. We get 5% increased crit chance per spells per 100 player max life, which we're scaling because we're strength stacking. And Shaper's Touch doesn't give life, does it? Unless you're dexterity. Yeah. And we get 5% increased spell damage per 100 player life. So we already get crit strike chance on our spells because of strength stacking, of which we should be getting 1,000% increased from that node alone. But we also get whatever crit strike chance for spells just from this. But we do get a lot of our percent spell damage from this item alone. That's going to be pretty huge. Then we have Crown of the Inward Eye. This is going to be one of these builds. A pretty cheap item, like 5 chaos you could buy it for. But you get Transfiguration of Soul, Body, and Mind. Soul, and tell me if you've heard this scaling before, increases to max energy shield applied to spell damage at 30% of its value. Turns out we get a shit ton of percent AES, both from our innate intelligence stacking, which gives us 1% ES per 5 int, which means with 1,000 intelligence, which is the plan, we are getting 5 times 200. We get 200% increased energy shield from intelligence alone. Then we add, because of Shaper's Touch, we add that same scaling to strength, which is another 200%. So these two alone is going to be 400% increased ES, which with Transfiguration of a Soul gives us 200 divided by... No, it's... Wait, what? Is it 200 per or 200 total? Hold on. 1% ES per 5 int. If I have 500 intelligence, that is 100% ES. So 200% per node. So 400 total. Okay. So 400% ES gets converted into 130% increased spell damage from that alone and nothing else anywhere. So anyway, let's see. It'd be interesting how you make this proven useful build drown in yellow maps. False. Also, the reason why is because we're using Spectral Throw, but we'll talk about that in a second. We might change that back to Cyclone. It'll probably end up being a Cyclone build, but I don't want to do another Cyclone cast on crit. Also, this build is called Nerf CoC, please. I'm just putting that out there. So anyway, then we have Transfiguration. Oh, gosh. Oh, I don't know what I pressed. Oh, geez. Oh, okay, there we go. Sorry. I did something on my monitor. Transfiguration of Body increases to max life, also apply to attack damage. Useless, but whatever. We scale a lot of life. We're doing Spectral Throw Cyclone. It's not useless. Transfiguration of Mind increases to max mana, also apply, which with Shaper's Touch does not give us mana, does it? Unless you're doing... Oh, no, we do get max mana. Okay, sweet. Except it's not because it's flat mana, but whatever. We do get it because of... Well, fuck, we don't really scale that at all, are we? Chad, is this a dumb item? Is the better option just to get the anointment for Transfiguration of Soul and then use a different helmet? Because we're not really benefiting from it, are we? Like, we get 14% global life, mana, and global energy shield, which is cool. But, like, is that worth a helmet slot now that I'm looking at it? Because there's other ways to get Transfiguration of Soul. Awful Roll, Corrupted. What the fuck is this crown? It's cheap. That's why. Gee, I'm not buying quality here. We can get a better one. Nerf CoC, why? Couldn't even take you to Reds? It takes a lot of people to Reds. It'll take this build to Reds. We're killing pinnacles with this shit, all right? What else? Oh, hello. What else are we killing here? Or killing. What else are we equipping here? Is that all the uniques, I think? Hold on, how many uniques do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with the jewel, 6 with Choro Scanning Elixir, and then 7 if you count Energy Shield. I personally do Energy Blade. I personally do because it operates as if it's a unique weapon, but you know, some people will get pedantic about it. It's a spell, but it's really a unique as far as I'm concerned. Now the question is, chat. No, we're using a shield. I'm not going to get greedy. Don't get greedy. It's not worth the damage. All right, we need a shield. Now, I do happen to have an unset ring that I found that gave me 4% increased strength, 6% increased intelligence, added implicit, that it has 30 flat int, some fire resistance, and +1 all attributes. It's not a good ring, but it'll get us started. It'll get us through, like, yellows. But no minus mana cost. We do have 2 Praxises and a couple of rings with minus mana cost on them, but it's a little bit spicy. But anyway, that's the build so far. And eventually, hopefully tomorrow, we just see the build and I just still going around Spectral throwing shit and everything will die. Were you about to suggest to dual wield Energy Blade? No, not dual wield, but you can two-hand it. By doing, oh my God, of course everything breaks. By doing basically this. Fuck. Wait, what? Stop. Oh my God, do I have to equip a two-handed weapon? Whatever. You can equip a two-handed weapon and just make it just better. All right, cool. Sick. You can make a two-handed Energy Blade, but obviously, you know, that's its own thing. And then we're gonna use Blazing Salvo because, oh, sorry. No, there is more scaling. Excuse me. We're using Sniper's Mark. We're using Sniper's Mark and Return Projectile to, we're using Sniper's Mark and Return Projectile to do Magma Orb shenanigans. Because if you have Sniper's Mark on an enemy, when you do this, you hit them, you actually basically equip a greater multiple projectiles because it hits 3 additional targets or whatever. It's basically a greater multiple projectiles on a shotgun. And return projectiles, because they come back to you, that means they hit the boss like a bunch. This only works, as it turns out, in my experience playing this build so far, only works when there's only one enemy on the screen. Because if you have more than one enemy, you get fucked with damage. It's actually going to be a problem because what happens is, like, if I'm the only enemy on screen and you hit me, this is what happens, right? Ooh, so many hits. Ooh, much lush, very hit. Ooh, so good. But then if you have a situation where, like, an enemy's over there or something, this is what happens. You get hit and it's like, vroom, 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 and you just lose just all the damage. And it's a problem. So I don't know how we're gonna address this. Hydrosphere would be horrible, but I don't know. It's gonna really kill our single target damage layer. Like Maven would be easy, probably, but like Uber Elder would be hard, I think, because you have so much shit around you. I don't know. It's hard to say. Because Uber Elder kind of fucks this build, doesn't he? Because you can still target Shaper even though he's invincible. So I don't know. Projectile so good, gang gang. What? Is that a meme that I don't know? Gang gang? It must be. I remember seeing a YouTube short where like some kid was making fun of some adults like gang gang bitch. And he's like, what the fuck? Okay. Anyway, that's the stream today. Oh, okay. So Path of Exile 2, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest, chat. I'm a little worried. I'm a little bit worried. They're like the fact that they outright say, Jonathan says like, oh, ExileCon is like actually the speed we originally wanted it at. And now I'm worried there's like a Chris Wilson miscommunication because it's not actually made harder. I don't know. I'm pretty sure you can't actually target them when invulnerable. Whoa. Uber Elder? Whoa, whoa, whoa. Easy there, buddy. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa, 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 Gary. You have to fucking kill fucking Shaper of Worlds, you dumbass. Like that. Anyway, tomorrow. Oh, fuck. We're not playing PoE tomorrow, are we? We have to finish Slay the Princess. But we're finishing Slay the Princess. But I'm going to play this build on my own. And next time you see it, chat, I'm going to whoop that ass. We're going to have Coruscating Elixir. It's going to be exciting. All right. It's going to be great. Have a good night. Have a good evening. I love you. Goodbye. Wait, chat, I don't see you. Hold on. Where are you? Okay, bye.